Chapter 236. Lu Qinyue's voice was gentle and soft as she smiled sweetly, cordially taking care of Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing's needs. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand and replied, "These foods and drinks are already very rich. There's no need to trouble you all. Bailey Hongzhuang, I hope you won't take Gong Xiaoqing and I's misunderstanding earlier." Dong Fengyu's face was a bit teasing as he spoke. Looking back at it now, that situation really was ridiculous. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood what Dong Fengyu meant and also laughed. "I understand. I'm afraid with Senior Dongfang's charm, it happens pretty often. I don't mind." Hearing Dong Fengyu and Bailey Hongzhuang's conversation, Lu Qinyue couldn't help but be a little curious. What happened earlier? Seeing how curious Lu Qinyue looked, Dong Fengyu smiled and explained what happened earlier. Lu Qinyue and Xia Jiqing couldn't help but laugh loudly. "Haha, with our Hongzhuang's beauty there was never a need to follow you guys like that." Xia Jiqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang laughingly. Dong Fengyu nodded slightly. Bailey Hongzhuang's looked so outstanding to the point that the number of pursuers she attracted couldn't be small. Before he had already told Gong Xiaoqing. But Gong Xiaoqing didn't believe it. For the first time, Gong Xiaoqing's judgment was finally wrong. Gong Xiaoqing's face was cold. "Stupid woman. It's not strange for me to think that." Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes when she heard Gong Xiaoqing speak. She knew running into this guy would spoil her appetite. "Oi, you idiot, why are you always calling me stupid?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows, casting a sidelong glance at Gong Xiaoqing. The first time they talked, he had also called her stupid woman. Bailey Hongzhuang had lived for a long time. People have scolded her as useless, others call her ruthless, but no one had ever called her stupid. "Who did you call an idiot?" Gong Xiaoqing shot back coldly, a layer of ice seemingly appearing on his originally cold face. Lu Qinyue and Dong Fengyu were both surprised. They hadn't expected for their nice chat about what had happened on that day to suddenly change into this. Gong Xiaoqing was angry, but Bailey Hongzhuang actually didn't care and answered, "Apart from you, who else here is an idiot?" Bang! Gong Xiaoqing banged the table as he stood up. "Stupid woman, you dare to call me an idiot?" Bailey Hongzhuang also got up, not to be outdone. "You called me stupid, so why can't I call you an idiot? Did you know that you're the first person to have ever called me an idiot?" Gong Xiaoqing's eyes flickered coldly, his voice like ice. "You're also the first one to call me stupid. We're all friends, so let's speak nicely. There's no need to get angry over such a small thing." Dong Fengyu immediately stood and tried to smooth things over, but in his heart, he was shocked at Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would even dare to face such a cold and unfeeling Gong Xiaoqing. Young cultivators all possessed some degree of arrogance, but in Azure Water School, he was afraid that apart from Bailey Hongzhuang, nobody else dared to challenge Gong Xiaoqing. Gong Xiaoqing looked coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang glared back, fighting back. Although the two didn't continue to bicker, their attitudes already made everything clear. Xia Jiqing was silent. She didn't understand what happened for the situation to have turned out like this. The two of them should be considered enemies, right? But looking at this situation, she felt that it wasn't the case. Big Brother Gong. Gong Dage Deji is Chinese for Big Brother, but reads a lot smoother in my Oppanon. Deji is pronounced Devi chapter 236 because although the words they used as they argued were harsh, there wasn't the least bit of force or intent behind them. Rather, it seemed more like a quarrel? A quarrel? When that thought appeared in Xia Jiqing's mind, even she herself didn't dare to believe it. As long as somebody was a student of Azure Water School, they'd all know that the strongest amongst the special enrollment students, Gong Xiaoqing, always behaved coldly. There was never any what-ifs. Words like quarreling should have nothing to do with Gong Xiaoqing, right? Lu Qinyue's eyes that were clear as water couldn't help but turn astonished when she saw such a side of Gong Xiaoqing. She had never seen a Gong Xiaoqing like this before, ever. Usually, if somebody dared to talk to Gong Dage like that, Gong Dage would have just directly attacked. And he wouldn't be at all polite with it either. She knew that as far as Gong Dage was concerned, there was no difference between men and women, all apart from her. So then why was Gong Dage different with Bailey Hongzhuang? The meal ended with the awkward atmosphere still in the air. After leaving Elegant Cloud Restaurant, Bailey Hongzhuang's group and Dong Fengyu's left separately. Hongzhuang, what happened between you and Gong Xiaoqing? Xia Jiqing asked curiously. Although she and Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't known each other for very long, she knew Bailey Hongzhuang's temper very well. Today's argument didn't match with Bailey Hongzhuang's usual behavior. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. I'm fed up with that guy. Everything I said was because he started it. Xia Jiqing faintly laughed in response. Gong Xiaoqing's famous for his cold attitude and poisonous tongue. Everybody knows that. That was why even though Gong Xiaoqing was Azure Water School's strongest student, he wasn't very popular. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows. It seemed that everyone in Azure Water School already knew about that somewhat, and she was the only one to find out now. Don't mention that stupid guy. If he's not mentioned, I won't be grumpy. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Hongzhuang, what's your impression of Lu Qinghua? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes wandered as she slowly spoke. Pretty good, a gentle beauty. Xia Jiqing shook her head. She's just too soft and gentle, and it makes me feel a bit uneasy. I still feel a lot more comfortable with you. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched into a bright, clear smile. Those words really do sound like words Xia Jiqing would say. Oh. The early morning sun shined through the window, lighting up the room, sprinkling on the cultivating Bailey Hongzhuang. Knock knock. A knock echoed at the door, followed by Junyu's clear voice. Bailey Hongzhuang, we're training behind the mountains today. Can you get up? Bailey Hongzhuang stopped cultivating. She already had everything prepared. She opened the door and smiled. Bai Junyu, let's go to the training area together. Bai Junyu smiled brightly. Today was their first day studying at Azure Water School, so his mood was quite cheerful. Yesterday, Dongfang Yu had already introduced the two to the training area. Ordinary students of the school usually practiced on the fighting stages within the school, while the special enrollment students practiced behind the mountains. The area behind the mountains was practically the special students' territory. As they passed through the regular training area, the two of them noticed Xia Jiqing waving at them with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang returned the wave and found Bai Junyu waving back in an almost extreme manner. Master, why is that guy waving like this? Little White said as he turned around, rolling his eyes. Maybe he's interested in Xia Jiqing. Little Black rubbed his chin as he began to ponder. Little White's eyes lit up. As a matter of fact, you might acutely be right. Chapter 238. Bailey Hongzhuang ignored the two fluffballs' imaginations, but she also thought that Bai Junyu really was a bit too enthusiastic with Xia Jiqing. However, that wasn't really a bad thing. The other students watched in envy as Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Junyu walked together behind the mountains. Going into the area behind the mountains was something they dreamed of. Special enrollment students in Azure Water School were a special existence. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Junyu arrived behind the mountains, Dongfang Yu was already there. The training fields behind the mountains were far bigger than the ordinary students' training areas, but if one were to look around, they'd find that almost no people were there. Dongfang Yu, Gong Xiaoqing, and Lu Qinghua were all there. And there was also 3 people that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know. At this moment, Fu Hongbo appeared in front of everybody. Everyone's already here. Please welcome this year's new special enrollment students, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Junyu. After Fu Hongbo's introduction, Dongfang Yu and the others all started clapping. The loud claps echoed behind the mountains. Yesterday, Dongfang Yu should have already told you our school's situation. Our special enrollment students are not confined to the school, so many of them are currently outside. From Fu Hongbo's speech, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that most of Azure Water School's special enrollment students were situated outside of the school. Not all of them were here right now, and many still didn't return from outside training. Today was the school's opening day, so they've all gathered here. On normal days, there was no need to come here to report. The way many of the cultivators trained was by taking tasks from the mercenary trade union. While completing the task, they would gain strength and experience. Once they've completed it, they can get points. Points were something everyone in Azure Water School wanted. That was because if you wanted to cultivate in the cultivation padoga, you needed to pay points. If you didn't have points, you can't cultivate there. The cultivation padoga was a place that all cultivators yearned for, even in their dreams, to cultivate. The spirit power there was rich enough for them to achieve twice the results with half the work, something nobody could ignore. The 2 new special enrollment students don't know very much about the point system, So how about we do this? Fu Hongbo looked at Gong Xiaoqing and the others. Gong Xiaoqing, you and Bailey Hongzhuang will be a group. Bai Junyu, you and Chui Haoyan will also be a group. You two will take care of the new special enrollment students. Is there a problem with that? When Gong Xiaoqing heard that he was grouped with Bailey Hongzhuang, waves appeared in his deep, black pupils. He didn't look at Bailey Hongzhuang and answered, no problem. Chui Haoyan also nodded, no problem. Bai Junyu, don't worry following us as your teachers. A teasing smile was in Dongfang Yu's eyes. This was really going to be interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang and Gong Xiaoqing were the most disagreeable couple, but now they're forced to be a team together. It looks like this will really be a good show to watch. When Lu Qingyun heard this, her face went stiff. But in a flash it was back to normal. Nobody noticed a thing. Dongfang Yu walked beside Bailey Hongzhuang, one hand on her shoulder as he smiled. Have you already registered as a mercenary at the Mercenary Trade Union? Bailey Hongzhuang was a bit startled and shook her head. I still haven't. Hearing that, everyone was a bit surprised. The Mercenary Trade Union was a very big organization in Shangxian continent. Basically, all cultivators their age had already registered as a mercenary. They hadn't thought that Bailey Hongzhuang actually still hadn't registered. Chapter 239 Bailey Hongzhuang. I've been a mercenary for 2 years now, but you haven't even registered yet? Bai Junyu asked, astonished. Bailey Honghang laughed a little. Back in the general's household, she was never allowed to take even half a step out of the residence, so how could she have possibly been able to register as a mercenary? Bailey Hongzhuang, how about I go with you to register? Dongfang Yu asked. There's no need, I'm fine with going alone. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's firm tone, Dongfang Yu just nodded. While you register as a mercenary, we'll pick the first task. This is your first mission, so us three will be leading. What do you think? No problem. We'll tell you once we've chosen a mission. In the meantime, you can go look around for some things you might want to buy and use when the time comes. I understand. After leaving Azure Water School through the back of the mountains, Bailey Hongzhuang went to the Mercenary Trading Union. Dongfang Yu had already told her where Azure Water City's Mercenary Trading Union was. The Mercenary Trading Union was the organization with the most members on Shangxian continent, even though being a mercenary was a very dangerous occupation that often bordered the line of death. Demonic beast fur, blood, and cores possessed all kinds of good things for humankind. With demand, there was naturally an occupation. Some cultivators hunt demonic beasts to make a living, exchanging the corpses of demonic beasts for gold. Mercenary trading unions issued all sorts of tasks and missions. If someone wanted a certain demonic beast, they could issue a mission in the trade union. Mercenaries accept the mission and upon completion, gets the reward. The reward was often far higher than what they could get from selling off the corpse alone. Big shops, weapon stores and pill masters all wanted demonic beasts for different reasons. Under such circumstances, the Mercenary Trade Union was able to quickly grow and strengthen. Now, the Mercenary Trade Union had already become the biggest organization on Shangxian continent. Compared to other sects, its power was absolutely enormous. No matter who it was, any cultivator could become a mercenary. Furthermore, they could leave any time they wanted to. There were no restrictions whatsoever. Therefore, all kinds of cultivators and identities registered as mercenaries. Rich families also wanted their juniors to learn through experience. Other mercenaries often accepted missions as a way to make a living, but Azure Water School students did missions not for the monetary reward, but for the point reward. This was an agreement Azure Water School and the Mercenary Trading Union had made with each other. The students earn points for a chance to cultivate in the cultivation pagoda, and the monetary reward they earn is given to fund the school and make it stronger. Students enrolling in Azure Water School didn't need to pay anything, so by doing this, it would ease the financial burdens on the school. This way both sides got benefits. The students also had no objections about this. The Mercenary Trading Union stood out in Azure Water City. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang saw the glazed-roofed building, she knew it was the Trading Union. The Mercenary Trading Union's summit was in the shape of a triangle. Rays of dazzlingly bright sunlight reflected brilliantly off of the glazed roof tiles. This pyramid also showed the Mercenary Trading Union's ranks. By completing a certain amount of missions, mercenaries can raise their ranks. The higher the rank, the fewer mercenaries there were. The ranks were ordered as yellow, green, blue, purple, and red. 5 distinct ranks. Yellow was at the bottom and red at the top. When Bailey Honghang entered the trade union, a burst of noise attacked her, filling her ears. Chapter 240. In front of them, almost all of the mercenaries were males. Amongst them, although there was no lack of students, there were still more big, rough men. Scars were faintly visible on their skin. Their lives were lived standing on the edge of the blade and could possibly die at any time. So they all cared deeply about this time to enjoy the pleasures of life. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't at all unfamiliar with that. In her past life she had already seen many others like that. The guild hall was very big, but since so many people were inside, it appeared to be quite narrow. Various tasks and missions were hung up on the wall, waiting for somebody to choose them. There was already a long line at the front desk. If somebody were to ask where the busiest place in Azure Water City was, the answer would undoubtedly be the Mercenary Trading Union. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang lined up, she suddenly felt somebody staring at her. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and turned in the direction of the stare, a trace of disgust floating past her eyes. The person who was staring at her so loathingly wasn't a stranger, but the revenge and hatred filled Lu Jingquan. On the life and death stage, Daijimon had died under her hands. Lu Jingquan liked Daijimon and seemed to hate her to his bones. Bailey Hongzhuang, I didn't expect that you'd still dare to go to Azure Water School. I really admire your courage. Lu Jingquan's face was gloomy and cold as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's cruelty. Bailey Hongzhuang had killed his long-beloved Daijimon. He needed to get revenge. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was apathetic, indifferently glancing at Lu Jingquan. Even you dared to come, so don't tell me that. You think I'd be afraid? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's taunt, his face grew even colder. Since you've come to Azure Water School, your only ending is death. Haha. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered and crossed her hands over her chest. Her face filled with ridicule. Lu Jingquan, do you really think I'd be scared of your meager strength? In a flash, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned cold. If you don't want to die, scram. Otherwise, I won't be responsible for the consequences. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang not giving him any face, Lu Jingquan's face turned extremely ugly. He was only a little bit stronger than Daijimon. Since Bailey Hongzhuang could kill Daijimon, she could probably kill him as well. So, he didn't dare to confront her directly. Bailey Hongzhuang, Daijimon is Dai Yunyang's little sister. Now that you've killed Daijimon, Dai Yunyang absolutely will not let you off. Lu Jingquan's face was sinister, his voice icy. Although Dai Yunyang wasn't a special enrollment student, he made a big jump in his cultivation after joining Azure Water School, and so was allowed to cultivate alongside the special enrollment students. Within 2 years, he managed to earn an extremely well-known reputation at Azure Water School. But right now, he was still gaining experience in the outside world. As long as he came back, he definitely wouldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang slip by. You don't have to worry about my matters. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent and didn't change in the slightest after hearing Lu Jingquan's words. Now scram. Lu Jingquan glared resentfully at Bailey Hongzhuang before angrily leaving the Mercenary Trade Union. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned as Lu Jingquan left. She actually had no idea that Daijimon actually still had such an older brother. Seems like another unavoidable annoyance was coming her way. But different situations call for different actions. She, Bailey Honghang, never regrets the things she'd done. The Mercenary Trade Union was currently very noisy. Even if some sort of conflict had erupted between Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Jingquan, no one would have noticed. Peng Yunxiang was choosing a mission when he suddenly saw Lu Jingquan and a woman arguing. At the same time, he heard Lu Jingquan say that Dai Yunyang would never let her off. A light suddenly appeared in his eyes. Chapter 241. Dai Yunyang was a very influential figure in Azure Water School, so many students wanted to form a good relationship with him. Dai Yunyang was the general's son. His future is limitless. Whenever Dai Yunyang's followers went out with him to accept missions, they always gained a lot of points as well. After 2 years, their originally mediocre achievements in cultivation had made a huge improvement. He had already stayed in Azure Water School for 2 years before going out to learn through experience. Today, he had just returned to Azure Water City. Since then he had always looked for a way to get close to Dai Yunyang. If he could become one of his followers, there were a lot of benefits to be reaped. Unfortunately, there was no chance. He didn't expect an opportunity would arise in front of him today. Since this woman and Dai Yunyang weren't on good terms, if he helps him deal with this woman, Dai Yunyang would definitely like him. Then how couldn't he have a meteoric rise? Bailey Hongzhuang stood in line. Although it was long, the mercenary trade union was also very efficient. Time passed quickly and soon it was her turn. Just as she was about to speak to the young woman at the counter, a figure suddenly butted in front of her. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Cutting in line? You could cut in line any time, but why did this guy wait for her to come up before cutting? Was this guy looking down on her strength, or purposefully trying to start a fight? I said you aren't allowed to cut in line. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold like ice, speaking slowly. When Peng Yunxiang turned to see Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, his eyes changed a little. When did Azure Water School get such a beauty? With such beauty, she didn't lose to the number one beauty, Lu Qingyue, in the least. But just as that thought popped into Peng Yunxiang's head, it was instantly erased. Right now, the most important thing was strength. As for women, after he's stronger, there'd be no lack of women flocking at him. I am cutting in line, what can you do about it? Peng Yunxiang's face suddenly revealed a rogue-like smile. Even though he wanted to curry favor with Dai Yunyang, he couldn't make it too obvious. Get lost. Now. Bailey Hongzhuang said icily. The scene slowly attracted everyone's attention. Fights from cutting in line wasn't at all unfamiliar. All of them lived on the edge of their blades. Their temperaments were far more violent than an ordinary person's. Cutting in line, if you were strong, others couldn't say a thing. But if you were weak, you could only be taught a lesson. This commonly seen situation was something everybody loved to watch. This neighborhood belonged to a group of people who loved to watch the world be in chaos and interesting shows, so naturally something like this was very well received by them. Peng Yunxiang actually didn't expect for Bailey Hongzhuang to be so arrogant, speaking such words without even knowing his strength. You dare to tell me to get lost? Peng Yunxiang raised his voice. It looks like you're a student from Azure Water School. Newborn calves truly don't fear the tiger. I've studied at Azure Water School for 2 years. I've seen many new students like you. His voice dropped, a trace of pride appearing in Peng Yunxiang's eyes. He believed that after Bailey Hongzhuang knew that he was a senior of Azure Water School, she would definitely become panicked. But Peng Yunxiang was disappointed. Bailey Hongzhuang still looked as tranquil as a passing cloud. Not only was she not the least bit panicked, she even seemed a bit mocking. So, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows as the corners of her mouth stretched into a contemptuous smile. There really was a lot of people looking for trouble with her today. Chapter 242. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's, Peng Yunxiang grew a bit irritated. Why didn't this woman follow common sense? Sensing the surrounding mercenaries' mocking stares, he knew he absolutely couldn't lose face and immediately ordered coldly, kowtow to me an apology right now. Otherwise, you'll have to take the consequences. Kowtow an apology? Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly turned icy, her expression sharp as a knife. Together it seemed to shoot at Peng Yunxiang like lightning. You think you're worthy? The simple question made Peng Yunxiang's eyes light with rage. For a long time now, other cultivators in the same grade as him would always look at him in contempt. Now even a new student dared to? You're courting death. Spirit power surged in Peng Yunxiang's body, his tightly clenched fist shooting at Bailey Hongzhuang ruthlessly without the slightest hesitation. Seeing this scene, the other mercenaries' eyes twinkled with excitement. They didn't expect for such a good show to watch today. Seems like the beauty was out of luck. Peng Yunxiang's strength had reached the middle stage of mysterious Ian, but the instant Peng Yunxiang's fist was about to hit Bailey Hongzhuang, she suddenly moved, her hand directly gripping onto Peng Yunxiang's wrist, preventing him from attacking any further. Ah! A resounding snap echoed through the lobby. In this split second, time seemed to have frozen. Peng Yunxiang felt a burst of scorching hot pain. But what hurt most wasn't his face but his heart. Everyone's eyes widened. This was really past their expectations. They hadn't thought that this peerlessly beautiful lady was actually so strong. Not only that, but even her temperament was domineering. One move as fast as lightning. Before they could react, Bailey Hongzhuang had already strongly slapped Peng Yunxiang. In a flash, Bailey Hongzhuang's legs suddenly lashed out. Peng Yunxiang had no time to defend himself and was sent flying a few meters away. Bailey Hongzhuang looked down at Peng Yunxiang, her eyes cold and ruthless. Wherever you scram off to, don't let me see you again. Otherwise, see if I won't break you into pieces. Peng Yunxiang stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze. When they had fought earlier, he had clearly sensed that Bailey Hongzhuang was at the middle stage of Mysterious Ian. How was this possible? How could a newly enrolled student from Azure Water School possibly be at the middle stage of Mysterious Ian? Wow! A voice and whistle broke the silence. The mercenaries stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, their eyes filled with interest. This beauty really made the heart race. Ah! Useless coward, why don't you go scram and play in the mud? Don't come out to be a disgrace again. Everyone sneered, taking the initiative to taunt him. This guy who had just been taught a lesson really was too disgusting. The sarcastic ridicule fell into Peng Yunxiang's ears, making his already dark face even darker. He could only fiercely shout, "When Dai Yunyang comes back, you'll definitely die an ugly death." Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang sneered, "So you're Dai Yunyang's dog?" He was wondering why this guy seemed to be picking a fight with her, and it turns out that he was trying to look for trouble with her in Dai Yunyang's place. "I don't know if my death will be ugly or not, but if you stay for one more second, I can guarantee that your death will be very ugly." Peng Yunxiang's face immediately changed, not daring to linger any longer, and immediately tried frantically to escape the mercenary trading union. From Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, he knew that if he really didn't leave right then and there, Bailey Hongzhuang really would have killed him. Chapter 243. Everyone sighed as their thoughts curiously wandered to Bailey Hongzhuang. With such good looks and amazing strength, how couldn't she attract attention? After what had happened, nobody else dared to disturb Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang smoothly registered as a mercenary and left the trade union. Seeing the yellow mercenary medal in her hands, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. She was looking forward to this new mercenary life. After she was finished her business, she didn't directly leave but instead stayed in the city to buy some stuff she might need for the missions. Living in the mountains was far different from living at home. It was a place where anything could happen. She needed to take the initiative to buy some things and prepare for a possible period of want or need. From Dongfang Yu's words, she knew that they'd start very soon. Fighting demonic beasts were the fastest way to improve their strength. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her room, she began to concoct some pills. Who knew what could happen during the mercenary missions? It was better to prepare some pills beforehand. The most important pill was the returning qi pill. At their current strength, the amount of spirit power in their dantian was too small. If they ran into a dangerous situation and all the spirit power in their dantian was already exhausted, they would quickly fall into extremely dangerous circumstances. Returning qi pills were Azure Water City's best-selling pill, but its price was rather expensive. Most cultivators had no way to afford it. Returning qi pills were first-rate pills, but for Bailey Hongzhuang, a pill master, it wasn't hard at all for her to refine them. Right now, she was already a second-grade pill master. There was still a gap between becoming a third-grade pill master, so making more immortality pills was very beneficial for her. Bailey Hongzhuang removed all possible distractions and focused single-heartedly on refining the pills. Cocoting immortality pills was a very delicate thing. It needed you to centralize your spirit power and pay careful attention to every tiny change to the ingredients. If there was the slightest problem, it would fail. The room was extremely quiet. Apart from the occasional crackling of the furnace from the pill ingredients, there was nothing else. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were serious as she poured her spirit power into the furnace, tightly watching over everything that happened inside. Time slowly passed by. A bang sound could be heard as Bailey Hongzhuang opened the pill furnace. Inside, a perfectly round, plump pill could be seen. The beautiful and secluded, fascinating pill fragrance pervaded the air. Just smelling it was already enough to sense the abundant spirit power inside. Bailey Hongzhuang directly loaded the pill into the porcelain bottle and took out another batch of ingredients before once again beginning to refine them. The next day, Xiajiqing came to look for Bailey Hongzhuang. When she saw Bailey Hongzhuang concocting the pills, her smooth and round, adorable face was astonished. "Hongzhuang, You can also even refine pills? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded faintly, a bit. Really awesome. Xia Jiqing's heart sighed. The conditions to becoming a pill master were very strict, something ordinary people were simply incapable of accomplishing. This was also why pill masters were looked so highly upon. Bailey Hongzhuang was already so strong, and on top of that she was actually also a pill master. It really makes her shocked, But since Bailey Hongzhuang had such high achievements with her cultivation, her pill refining skills probably weren't that good. After all, a person's energy was limited and could only empathize one field. Oh, that's right, Azure Water City has a pill master guild. If you want to turn into a first-grade pill master, you can go take the pill master examination there. Xia Jiqing smiled. Chapter 244. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows, her phoenix eyes flashing. She actually had no idea that there was something like a pill master guild. After 1,000 years, many new organizations and guilds had popped up in Shangxian, but authentication doesn't sound too bad. I heard that Lu Qinyue is also a pill master, and not only is she very good at concocting pills but even recently passed the second-grade pill master examination, causing many men to admire her even more. Lu Qinyue really has the skills worthy of being looked upon so highly by Azure Water School. She relied on her own power to become a special enrollment student, and is even a second-grade pill master, really great. Her beautiful, fresh and cute face sighed with emotion. Although Lu Qinyue's behavior wasn't at all cold, her strength truly was admirable. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black pupils seemed to twinkle with stars as her lips stretched into a bewitchingly beautiful smile. Azure Water School's #1 beauty really has both looks and power. At Lu Qinyue's age, to become a second-grade pill master, her potential was truly breathtaking. But it doesn't matter. Xia Jiqing sat beside Bailey Hongzhuang, a smile on her small and delicate face. I believe that with you, Hongzhuang's ability, you can definitely overtake Lu Qinyue. Go for it. I believe in you. Xia Jiqing raised her tiny fists, animatedly conveying her trust in Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing Xia Jiqing's high expectations for her, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. I'll go for it then. Getting Bailey Hongzhuang's assurance, Xia Jiqing's smile grew even bigger. But it then fell in a flash. Special enrollment students are so good. I heard that you're going out to learn through experience tomorrow to complete mercenary missions? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, right? Really enviable. I have to cultivate peacefully along with everyone in the class. I want to go out and kill. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips hooked into a bright smile. Xia Jiqing's adorable face really didn't match with her violent temperament. It won't be long until you can start accepting missions too, so right now, cultivate properly. Mercenary missions were often very dangerous, so you needed to have enough strength if you wanted to carry it out. Ordinary students weren't strong enough, so Azure Water School arranged for them to first train and cultivate to improve their strength before organizing their missions once they were strong enough. I'll definitely try hard to improve, so in the future, you must train with me. I will be waiting. After you set off and take care of yourself, I'll wait for you to come back in the courtyard. All right. It was early morning. The sun slowly rose along the horizon, the first rays of sun splitting through the clouds to land on the earth. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped cultivating and finished tidying up her things before leaving the room. Dongfang Yu and the rest also came down from upstairs. Soon, everyone gathered outside the dormitory. Bai Junyu and Cui Haoyan had also come out. Today their teams would start their missions. Cui Haoyan stared at Gong Shaoqing. Gong Shaoqing, why don't we have another competition again? The last time their two teams had a competition, they had lost by a meager amount. This time they were going to turn the tables. Gong Shaoqing's face still held that unshakable indifference, his pitch-black pupils deep and reserved. Fine. Chapter 245. How are we competing? Dongfang Yu smiled a casual, calm smile. He was also very interested in his suggestion. This time our main focus is showing the new students how to complete missions. We'll do it on who can complete the mission the fastest. But when fighting the demonic beasts, we seniors cannot intervene. How about it? Cui Haoyan proposed. Dongfang Yu turned to stare at Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, what do you think? This time our mission is to kill armored rhinoceros and take its skin. armored rhinoceros were at the middle stage of mysterious Ian, the same as Bailey Hongzhuang. Demonic beasts had more natural strength and defense, so wanting to defeat it, while at the same cultivation level, wasn't very easy. No problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was crisp and sweet, replying without the slightest hesitation. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's blunt reply, a trace of a smile appeared in Cui Haoyan's eyes. New students always underestimated the strength of a demonic beast. Especially Bailey Hongzhuang, who only registered as a mercenary after coming to Azure Water School. Wanting to handle armored rhinoceros really wasn't an easy thing to do. Our mission is to kill stonecat beasts. Their strength is very close to armored rhinos. Cui Haoyan looked at Bai Junyu. This was something he suddenly suggested, so he hadn't said anything to Bai Junyu beforehand. I also have no problems. His fresh and elegant, handsome face had a bright sunny smile. Bai Junyu grinned widely, exposing straight white teeth. This was a chance to demonstrate his strength. If he refused, there wouldn't be any more opportunities to properly assimilate into the team. So he couldn't refuse, and neither did he want to refuse. A trace of satisfaction appeared in Cui Haoyan's eyes. So then the competition is set. Zhang Yunfeng's face turned interested as he proposed. Since it's a competition, how about we spice things up a bit? Speak. Gong Xiaoqing's face was emotionless as he stared at Zhang Yunfeng. His solid, handsome face emitted confidence. He still cherished words like gold, but that simple word was filled with haughtiness and arrogance, as if his victory was already won. Zhang Yunfeng seemed to understand Gong Xiaoqing's temperament and didn't take his rude word to heart. The winning team will get both teams' accumulated points, and us senior students will all put forward 500 gold coins into the wager. How about it? Zhang Yunfeng's lips rose slightly, her beautiful face filled with interest and heroic spirit. This kind of competition aroused their competitive spirits the most. Although they didn't know Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, Bai Junyu was at the late stage of mysterious Ian. His talent was outstanding even amongst all the previous special enrollment students. Okay. Gong Xiaoqing never had the slightest bit of hesitation, his voice confident and steady. When Gong Xiaoqing made the decision, Dongfang Yu and Lu Qingyue didn't give the least bit doubt. There was clearly already a tacit understanding between the three. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. She actually didn't know Gong Xiaoqing had such confidence in her. From Little Black and Little White's mouths, she already knew that Bai Junyu was at the late stage of mysterious Ian, one level above hers. Dealing with armored rhinos at the middle stage of mysterious Ian wasn't easy at all, but killing stonecat beasts at the late stage was far less of a challenge. This simply wasn't a fair competition. Although she didn't exactly know how much 500 points were worth, from Zhang Yunfeng's attitude, she knew that it wasn't a small amount. Chapter 246. Except for her, the other three took out 500 points, totaling up to 1,500 points. In addition to the points gained from the mission, the bet wasn't small at all. Then, let us separate here. We shall meet again after the mission is completed. Cui Haoyan's gaze was resplendent, his handsome yet determined face overflowing with complete confidence. In this competition, it'd definitely be his victory. Luoyun Mountain Range was located behind Azure Water School, in between Fengbo Country and Clear Flame Country. It was like a natural moat separating the two kingdoms. Azure Water School was also located in between the two kingdoms. As a result, the school was filled with students from those countries, as well as students from the other kingdoms and countries. The Luoyun Mountain Range could be said to be the biggest mountain range of Fengbo Country, having great coverage. Even mercenaries would barely enter its outskirts. After countless years of nourishment, the ancient forest was towering and exuberant, with demonic beasts running rampant within. Although there was danger everywhere, in the eyes of cultivators, the forest was only a place filled with opportunities. Cui Haoyan waited till everyone separated. Then Dongfang Yu's peach blossom-shaped eyes rose slightly. His handsome and incomparable face was full of doubt and confusion. Dongfang Yu's voice was gentle and mellow, confident but resolute. This was never a fair competition, they never promised it'd be. However, the most important thing was that this action of theirs would greatly increase the pressure on Bailey Hongzhuang. Cui Haoyan wishes to regain some face. Give him a chance, all right? Gong Xiaoqing's face was indifferent and uncaring, Even if I didn't agree today, he would continue bothering me. It's too much trouble. Too much trouble. He just didn't like the trouble. It wasn't because he had confidence in Bailey Hongzhuang's strength at all. 3 black lines appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead. This sort of iceberg face guy simply couldn't be argued with using common sense. The corner of Dongfang Yu's mouth curled into an understanding smile. Sure enough, that was what Gong Xiaoqing would think. However, this competition wasn't just a game to him. Lu Qinyue's lips hooked into a soft smile as she turned to explain to Bailey Hongzhuang. Gong Dage is just afraid he would be troublesome. A beautiful smile blossomed on her bright, dainty face, just like a blooming flower. Bright, colorful, and moving. It was a simple sentence, however, the meaning was extremely clear. It might have been extremely faint, but Bailey Hongzhuang was able to perceive the hidden meaning deep within. Evidently, Lu Qingyue admired Gong Xiaoqing, because when she spoke she had a somewhat strange tone of expectation. Could it be that she considered her as a rival? In the moment that this thought appeared, the corner of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth tugged up. She was indeed a funny person. Whether it be appearance or strength, Dibei-chan had them both. Even though they were only working together for now, but just based on appearances they were a married couple. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix-shaped eyes raised in thought, spending a few moments thinking and in concern. That unmatched man who knows how he's doing. That honorable status of his, because of his health, had degraded into becoming the prince of Fengbo country. Now that he returned to take it all back, she was afraid that it wouldn't be easy at all. A bewitching, sly smile appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. The corners of her lips also rose into a slight smile. Bailey Hongzhuang, we hope the bet won't give you any psychological burdens. It's just that there have always been some contradictions between us and Cui Haoyan, so don't worry about it. Chapter 247. Dongfang Yu's brilliant, starry eyes were gentle to the point that they seemed wet. His voice deep yet graceful, appearing as if he was worried and comforting her. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. I understand. This was Gong Xiaoqing and Cui Haoyan's competition. Her being able to help should already be giving Gong Xiaoqing face. And as for who wins and loses, she was just simply unrelated to it. However, she never liked losing. Stupid woman, if you lose the competition, all you have to do is admit that you're a stupid woman. Gong Xiaoqing spoke apathetically, his gaze staring ahead just like an exotic calling out. That was how he spoke. Really don't know who he's talking to. What a mannerless bastard. Each and every action of this bastard was stained with the stench of arrogance and disdain. It was a stench that originated from the depths of his character. Seems like I've won already, so why don't you admit you're an idiot? His clear, yet crafty eyes were filled with ridicule. Even though the words Gong Xiaoqing said were not arrogant at all, she could hear the hidden consolation inside his words. Basically what he meant was, she lost the competition but she doesn't need to care about it. All she had to was admit she was an idiotic woman and that's all. In fact, whether she admitted it or not, Gong Xiaoqing would still call her by that. If the situation is like this, then to her there was no difference in either option. Gong Xiaoqing coldly glanced at the quiet Bailey Hongzhuang, and then continued walking forward. The corner of her mouth curled into a teasing smile. It seems like this bastard wasn't all that repulsive. When she was bored, she could just tease this facial nerve paralysis bastard for an interesting reaction. Bailey Hongzhuang's crafty charm was seen by Dongfang Yu. His peach blossom-shaped eyes fluttered about, a bright smile on his face. The entrance to the Falling Clouds mountain range was not far at all from the Azure Water School because there would normally be a lot of Azure Water School students entering the range to complete missions. So it was very close. Both the east and west sides have one entrance. The entrance that Bailey Hongzhuang and company arrived at was the east entrance. On the other hand, Bai Junyu and his team entered the west entrance. By noon, they had arrived at the entrance to the Falling Clouds mountain range. Originally, this was just a normal entrance, but as the number of people traveling through here increased, it eventually evolved into a small town. It sold all kinds of things cultivators might need. At the same time, there were merchants who'd come here to buy demonic beast hides. Everyone here lived lives in contact with demonic beasts. Gong Xiaoqing and his company of 3 was clearly a frequent visitor to the Fallen Clouds mountain range. When they arrived, there was a multitude of envious yet admiring gazes upon them as they traveled down the street. However, there were even more gazes on Bailey Hongzhuang. Since when did Gong Xiaoqing's group include another woman? And her looks didn't lose to Lu Qingyue at all. Could it be one of Azure Water School's new special enrollment students? I didn't think that the special enrollment students had not only great strength but even beauty. If we're able to become Azure Water School students, how wonderful would that be? Bailey Hongzhuang's line of sight swept over the crowd. No wonder Dai Jiman acted with such haughtiness. This identity alone was enough to attract the envy of thousands. Have you already prepared everything you need? Do you need to buy anything here? Dongfang Yu had a smiling expression upon his face as he gently looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. No need, I've got everything I need. Let's first go to the inn and eat, before changing into more durable clothing. Chapter 248. There were many inns near the entrance. Many cultivators would first rest here for a night, and after they recovered their strengths, they would head into Luoyun Mountain. There were also drained cultivators who came back from Luoyun Mountain that stayed at the inns. They would wait until they had recovered before leaving. Because it was a competition, Bailey Hongzhuang's group clearly wouldn't waste their time here. After they ate a simple meal, the four people changed into simple combat clothes. Inside the mountain there were thorns growing everywhere. Normal long robes and clothing could easily get caught on them, which would greatly reduce their combative abilities. The moment that Bailey Hongzhuang came out dressed, everyone's eyes seemed to flash with stunning colors. They only see Bailey Hongzhuang wearing a suit of skin-tight, bright red, combat clothing. It revealed the perfection of her body without exposing anything. The bright and fresh colors paired with her beautiful face made her very alluring and charming. Her brows revealed a trace of heroic spirit and perseverance, making her seem even more pleasing to the eye. Her black phoenix eyes shined with light, showing her vigor and determination. The Bailey Hongzhuang dressed up in the uniform made Dongfang Yu and others can't help but feel as though they were looking at an illusion. Her like this emitted a dangerous but flirtatious charm, making people unable to take their eyes off of her. Even the cold Gong Xiaoqing showed a slight change in his expression. However, he recovered quickly, and no one noticed anything. Lu Qinyue's soft and gentle eyes flashed with amazement. Bailey Hongzhuang in her combat uniform seemed so different from when she was in her usual outfit. In white clothing she looked pure. In red clothing she looked charming. When worn by Bailey Hongzhuang, the two supposedly different styles seemed to fit together perfectly. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swept over the other three's outfits. Gong Xiaoqing was wearing a black combat uniform. His handsome face was cold and expressionless. His eyes were as cold as ice. His hooked nose also added a few points of sharpness to his features. Dongfang Yu was wearing a light blue combat uniform. His temperament was kinda gentle and he looked elegant and charming. Lu Qinyue was wearing a hibiscus pink combat uniform. With a water-like temperament she seemed perfect. Even if she was wearing combat uniform, she was still beautiful and charming. After everyone had changed into their battle uniforms, it made them look less soft and tougher, more like cultivators from Azure Water School. Let's go, Gong Xiaoqing nonchalantly said. His coldness seems to emit from his bones. Even if he is facing familiar teammates, his voice still carried coldness. With that, the four people headed towards Luoyun Mountain. Along the way, they encountered many mercenaries and people here for training. Originally Luoyun Mountain didn't have an entrance. It's only because there are multiple people going through the same route so multiple entrances then appeared. The entrances were usually taken by human cultivators, so there were usually no demonic beasts that appear. One would only run into those demonic beasts deep in the mountain. As Dongfang Yu was walking, he was also explaining things to Bailey Hongzhuang. Since this the first time that Bailey Hongzhuang registered for mercenaries, then this should also be her first time coming to Luoyun Mountain. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to Dongfang Yu's explanation. This basic knowledge was not foreign to her. However, she was now the Bailey Hongzhuang of Fengbo country, so she naturally had to make it seem more real. Lu Qinyue and Gong Xiaoqing were walking in front while Bailey Hongzhuang and Dongfang Yu were behind them. During the journey, there only seemed to be Bailey Hongzhuang and Dongfang Yu's voices. As the four people slowly headed deeper into the mountain, a number of cultivators they encountered decreased. Finally, it was only the four of them walking in the mountain. Chapter 249. The towering trees seemed to be high enough to touch the clouds. The warm sun shone through the gaps of the leaves, only leaving a little bit of light. Can be seen that Luoyun Mountain has a lot of history. Suddenly a subtle sound caught Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' attention. Be careful. That handsome and cold face showed traces of alertness and cautiousness. Gong Xiaoqing observed his surroundings carefully. There must be some type of demonic beast around. Swish. There was a subtle sound, but they only saw a shadow flash by. The sword in Gong Xiaoqing's hand moved as fast as lightning. A lightning raccoon had been killed by his sword. Lightning raccoon was at mysterious Ian late stage. It was small in size, quick in action, and had the speed of lightning. Their specialties were sneak attacks, usually leaving their opponents unable to prevent them. Gong Xiaoqing grabbed his sword and the demonic beast's crystal. Then he turned around and walked forward as if nothing had happened. Bailey Hongzhuang's brows lowered slightly. Gong Xiaoqing really was worthy of the title of Assure Water School's #1 student. The keen observation skills and incredible strength made people unable to find any flaws in him. When walking inside of Luoyun Mountain, you can be attacked anytime by demonic beasts. That is why you must pay attention and concentrate on your surroundings. A careless person can easily lose their life here. Reminded Dongfang Yu along the way, Bailey Hongzhuang's group ran into many demonic beasts. Gong Xiaoqing, Dongfang Yu, and Lu Qinyue all took turns handling them. In between fights, Dongfang Yu would also carefully inform Bailey Hongzhuang on each demonic beast's weakness and things to keep in mind when battling them. Bailey Hongzhuang realized the demonic beasts here and the demonic beasts thousands of years in the past had a huge difference. After these thousands of years, these demonic beasts had evolved quite a lot. They had become smarter and were much harder to deal with than before. After all this time, the mysterious continent has already divided all kinds of demonic beasts into a clear system. Now, humans were very familiar with these demonic beasts. However, from what Bailey Hongzhuang learned from Dongfang Yu, many demonic beasts gradually disappeared throughout the long history of the years. The demonic beasts that could easily adapt to their surroundings then became stronger, whereas the weaker demonic beasts got weaker and eventually became extinct. It could be said that the demonic beasts now were much stronger than thousands of years before. The night slowly came around, and dense black clouds soon covered Luoyun Mountain. This made the already dark mountain to seem even darker and silent. The darkness made people unable to see their fingers when they stretched out their hands. Around them there were roars of demonic beasts and sounds of birds and insects. The whole Luoyun Mountain seems to be covered in fear. Crackle, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others were walking inside the mountain. The sounds of them stepping on leaves and branches could be clearly heard in this quiet night. Let's go rest in front over there. Gong Xiaoqing's star-bright eyes seemed like a gem shining in the night. It was truly bright and beautiful. They had been looking for a dry place to rest. It's just that before they were walking through a wetland and only managed to walk out of it now. Dongfang Yu smiled and nodded his head. The terrain up ahead is very high. It is very suitable for resting. Soon the four reached the high ground. They waited for Gong Xiaoqing to carefully and cautiously inspect the area. Only after it is confirmed that there are no demonic beasts anywhere did they stable themselves on a sturdy tree to sit down. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others formed a circle and then sat down. They then start to take out dried food from their bags to eat. After this whole day, do you feel tired? Dongfang Yu's eyes were soft. His handsome and caring face revealed a shallow smile. When cultivators first participate in training as mercenaries, they will always be somewhat unused to it. Chapter 250. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly with her eyes shining brightly. It's fine, I don't feel tired. Compared to the difficult cultivation practices she had gone through before, walking and running for a whole day was easy. There's no way she would feel exhausted from that. The only problem was that this body's physical strength wasn't good enough. She still needed to train more. Oh! Dongfang Yu's brows raised up. His peach blossom-like eyes contained surprise and laughter. I never knew that a general household's miss can handle so much. Dongfang Yu and the others run around outside and play often, so they are already used to the exhaustion. Bailey Hongzhuang was only a new student at Azure Water School. She was also a general's daughter. She most likely has been spoilt and wasn't able to handle such hard work. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang's behavior was already way better than what he imagined. How many young girls would throw a fit at the thought of going into the mountains? Such a scene wasn't common at all, especially in the common class. They seemed to be everywhere. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips pulled into a grin. That's because you don't understand me well enough. Children from rich families are usually pampered and spoiled. However, she was not one of those kids. She's always lived worse than a pig or dog. His peach blossom eyes revealed his confusion. He hadn't missed the darkness flickering in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Could there be a story behind it? Gong Xiaoqing's eyes flickered and expressionlessly said, "She has not done anything but walk today. If she can't even handle that, then she should not be a cultivator." The same cold unchanging tone. The same tone looking for a beating. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly glanced at Gong Xiaoqing. Not one word from that guy's mouth was good. Dong Fengyu smiled, revealing traces of curiosity. Our Gong Xiaoqing normally never speak in such long sentences. If you say it like that, does that mean that he was giving me face? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and asked. Her eyes contained a grin. After getting along for a while, she knew that Gong Xiaoqing had a good heart. It's just that his words aren't very pleasant to hear. Dong Fengyu's brows lifted lightly. Although he did not speak, his laughter was very obvious. Lu Qingyue looked at the scene in front of her. Her gentle and water-like eyes showed traces of tension and anxiousness, but that was quickly hidden away. Hongzhuang, you won't mind if I call you by that, right? Lu Qingyue smiled softly. Her voice was like the wind, clear and pleasant to hear. I don't mind. Bailey Hong smiled back. Today Lu Qingyue was walking by Gong Xiaoqing, so they didn't speak much. It's your first time doing mercenaries, so you are bound to be unused to it. The next few days will all be like today. If you are unused to it, you can come talk to me. Lu Qingyue's smile was sweet and beautiful. Her soft looks make her seem like a kind sister. It let people put down their guards on her. Thank you for your concern. Her bright phoenix eyes flashed with light. I'm not one of those pampered kids. Since I have decided to come here to cultivate, I have already gotten ready to experience hardship. You guys don't have to care about me. She was not at all new to this, so she didn't need to receive all this special care. The three's eyes all fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Those dark eyes were calm and persistent as the sun, glowing brightly. Dong Fengyu couldn't help but change the way he saw her. He knew that what Bailey Hongzhuang said was true, not only words of courtesy. She really didn't need everyone to see her as a newbie. That kind of firm and resolute eyes was something he recognized. The reason was that every cultivator that has gone through tough and hard practices would have such eyes. Including Gong Xiaoqing. Including him. Chapter 251. Gong Xiaoqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Her eyes were clear and bright, able to see straight through people. Bailey Hongzhuang, not wanting to lose, looked straight back at Gong Xiaoqing. The two pairs of eyes met each other. Seemed to be an instant collision. The next moment Gong Xiaoqing looked away. With his face still indifferent, he said, if that's the case, then we will not take extra care of you tomorrow and kick up our speed. Because it was Bailey Hongzhuang's first time coming into Luoyun Mountain today. They purposefully slowed down their speed to take care of Bailey Hongzhuang. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was insisting, then they wouldn't waste any more time. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved up into an enchantingly beautiful smile. Today, she had already understood a lot about these demonic beasts 1,000 years later. Tomorrow she would have no problem catching up to everyone's rhythm. Dong Fengyu looked at the beautifully smiling Bailey Hongzhuang. His brows flashed with a strange light. This woman, ever since the beginning she has revealed so many extraordinary things about herself. She was always giving surprises. A silent night. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others rested there for a night. During that time they hadn't encountered any demonic beasts or danger. It was obvious that Gong Xiaoqing's group has a good amount of experience in living inside the mountain. They knew what area was the safest resting spot. The four people were full of excitement as they continued on with their journey. The armored rhinoceros lived in the inner area of Luoyun Mountain. From where they are now, it will take them about 3 days to reach the habitat. The speed of the group was clearly much faster today. Bailey Hongzhuang also not pressured by the fast speed at which they were traveling. After Gong Shaoqing and the others saw Bailey Hongzwang moving at such a quick speed without any pressure, they also kicked up their speed. They were not so willing to lose this race. Along the way, most of the demonic beasts were killed by Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fangyu. Lu Qingyue and Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even have to fight. At this rate, the group was moving very fast. Originally, it was going to take 3 days for them to reach their destination, but they only needed 2 days. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others creeped along the hill. They looked at a lively armored rhinoceros at the bottom. Armored rhinoceros had a black body and hard and strong metal scales covering its whole body. Below the sunlight, it revealed an iron-like toughness. Its huge size was about the size of 2 fine horses. When it was walking, there were loud thumps. Seemed like it even shook the ground. Armored rhinoceros were usually in groups. They were lucky to come across a lone one. Bailey Hongzhuang, do you want me to kill an armored rhinoceros to show you a demonstration? Dong Fangyu's handsome eyes flashed with concern and worry. For a mysterious Ian middle stage's strength to take on an armored rhinoceros, it would be quite difficult, especially for Bailey Hongzhuang's type that didn't have experience in fighting demonic beasts. Dongfang, this was a singled armored rhinoceros. If you kill it, then it wouldn't be so easy for us to find another singled out one. Lu Qinyue's brows wrinkled slightly. Her beautiful face showed traces of awkwardness. What she said was the truth. When fighting a group of demonic beasts like the armored rhinoceros, one usually killed off just a lone beast that had wandered too far from the others. The other armored rhinoceros in this group would not be too far away. Once one of them was killed and alerted the others, they would all group together and go into a state of cautiousness. At that time, if one wanted to find a singled-out armored rhinoceros, it was not certain how long one would have to wait for one. Dong Fangyu was listening and wanted to say something, but Bailey Hongzhuang beat him to it and said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." So far, she had not revealed her strength yet, so Dong Fangyu and the others didn't know what she was capable of. It was only an armored rhinoceros. For her, there was no need to feel pressured. Chapter 252. Alright, remember to be careful, Dong Fangyu urged. Traces of confusion and surprise appeared in Lu Qinyue's eyes. Dongfang, you seem to be especially concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang. Were they really just teammates? She had known Dongfang Yu for a very long time. Although he always treated others politely, this was the first time she saw him so concerned and considerate. She instinctively sensed something was different. Take care. An apathetic voice was suddenly heard. Traces of concern were faintly visible in Gong Shaoqing's pitch-black pupils. Armored rhinoceros wasn't even easy for him to deal with. Never mind a newcomer like Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was flabbergasted before a confident smile slowly spread across her face. She really didn't expect that Gong Shaoqing would also caution her. I will. A smile as bright as the sun burst on Bailey Hongzhuang's perfectly delicate, beautiful face. 100 flowers seemed to bloom in that split second, creating an incomparable beauty. Bailey Hongzhuang unsheathed her translucent, blue sword. Her figure seemed just like a cheetah, a swish sounding as she ran. In the blink of an eye, she was already behind the armored rhinoceros. A trace of surprise flicked in Gong Shaoqing's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed wasn't simple. Ding! Bailey Hongzhuang didn't waste any time. The spirit power within her body rushing forth into the blade, causing it to release a faint glow. She brandished the ice-chilling sword, ruthlessly stabbing it towards the armored rhinoceros' soft underbelly. All demonic beasts had weaknesses. Armored rhinoceros had a hard outer shell. Trying to break through its defense wasn't at all easy. By attacking its weak point, you could get twice the effect with half the effort. You could only hear the subtle sounds of a sword piercing skin before a heaven-shakingly loud roar sounded from the armored rhinoceros. Roar! The armored rhinoceros hadn't expected for somebody to suddenly attack it. A burst of pain came from its belly before it could even notice somebody was there. Under the fierce pain, the armored rhinoceros seemed to go mad as it charged rapidly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Rumble! The huge body seemed just like a cannonball as it charged with heaven-shaking momentum. Its bloody mouth was opened wide like a sacrificial bowl, dense, cold air coming out from its needle-sharp teeth, cruel and bloody. Woo! The armored rhinoceros opened its mouth to bite at Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang were to be bitten, Her entire body would be completely mutilated. But Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were calm from beginning to end. Even though she was facing such a crisis, her delicate face wasn't the least bit panicked. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed grew even faster as she rushed straight at the armored rhinoceros. Seeing this, Gong Xiaoqing and the rest were all stunned. What was Bailey Hongzhuang doing? Hongzhuang won't be in danger, will she? Lu Qinyue's clear eyes flashed with worry. Bailey Hongzhuang's move was truly past what they had anticipated. Gong Xiaoqing frowned as he gathered his spirit power, prepared to rush out and rescue Bailey Hongzhuang. The instant Bailey Hongzhuang and the armored rhinoceros were about to collide, her figure suddenly twisted away, slipping past its body like a fish. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer there, the armored rhinoceros continued to charge. It couldn't stop. Bailey Hongzhuang grabbed the opportunity. Her body tightly slid past the armored rhino as she waved her sword. The ice-chilling sword flew through the air as the subtle sound of sword-piercing flesh once again echoed in the air, causing the armored rhino's blood to gush out violently. Roar! The armored rhinoceros roared even more wildly. Its black eyes were tinged red as it charged even more madly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 253, The Armored Rhinoceros is Furious. Gong Xiaoqing's voice was downcast. A haze covered his cold and indifferent eyes, hiding what was under so nobody could see. Bailey Hongzhuang already managed to seriously wound the armored rhinoceros with only 2 strokes of her sword. Whether it's strength or mentality, there are no flaws at all. Dong Fengyu's graceful, handsome face was filled with admiration. It was very rare for a new student to give such a performance on their first time out. After an armored rhinoceros' strength bursts out, it isn't easy to deal with it. Lu Qinyue's voice was tender as if water, her dainty, delicate face unreadable. I think that no matter what it is, Bailey Hongzhuang will be able to handle it. Dong Fengyu smiled confidently. He could see that even facing the armored rhinoceros fury, Bailey Hongzhuang was still calm and indifferent, her eyes undisturbed without the slightest wave. She wasn't at all panicked. Rumble! The armored rhinoceros charged forward. Bailey Hongzhuang sheathed her sword and once again faced it head-on. This time Bailey Hongzhuang didn't slip by but instead jumped up into midair. Her figure flipped over, landing steadily on its back. Her movements were neat and tidy as if it was second nature. It was just like she already knew what would happen. Her carefulness was worthy of admiration. The armored rhino didn't think that this repulsive human would crawl onto its back and frantically shook its body, wanting to throw Bailey Hongzhuang off. But no matter how the armored rhinoceros moved and twisted, Bailey Hongzhuang was stuck on its back. Right now, the fastest way to defeat it was to attack the armored rhino's back. But this time, the mission was to bring back the rhino's intact leather so Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't. The spirit power in her body rushed forth as her middle stage mysterious Ian strength burst out. Bailey Hongzhuang gathered her spirit power in her right hand, giving out a dazzling light. Storm Cleaver! Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly, the berserk endless strength in her first ruthlessly pounding on the armored rhino. Bang! A dull noise sounded as a heavy object fell to the ground. The armored rhinoceros toppled over with a loud bang, its big eyes slowly losing light. Dong Fengyu and the rest were all astonished. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to kill the armored rhinoceros so cleanly and efficiently. Originally they had thought that even if Bailey Hongzhuang was strong enough to defeat the armored rhinoceros, their fight would definitely be at least dangerous. But Bailey Hongzhuang's fight was smooth and natural, without the least bit of flaw. Gong Xiaoqing's eyes flickered. Bailey Hongzhuang's fight didn't seem one bit like a shaky novice's. All her responses to the armored rhino were clear and logical, nimbly attacking its weak points. Everything was methodically arranged as if she had lived a life secluded in the mountains. Bailey Hongzhuang easily took out the armored rhino's demonic core. But before Dong Fengyu and the others could congratulate Bailey Hongzhuang, an enormous figure charged at Bailey Hongzhuang like lightning. A heavy shadow covered Bailey Hongzhuang. She raised her eyes and saw another armored rhinoceros facing the one she had just killed. Be careful! Dong Fengyu cried in alarm. His gentle and soft, handsome face was filled with worry, but they were too far. The armored rhinoceros' arrival was too sudden. There wasn't enough time to save her. Chapter 254 Swish. A fine and powerful sword swept by, startling everyone. Shadowless kill. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure curled into a spin before directly rolling onto the armored rhinoceros's body. In that split second, the armored rhinoceros's belly was split open, blood spraying everywhere. Bailey Hongzhuang even then took advantage of the lighting to extract the armored rhino's demonic core. Thump! Another armored rhinoceros fell to the ground. It had only appeared for a few seconds before dying. Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fengyu, and Lu Qingyue rushed to Bailey Hongzhuang's side only to see her matchlessly beautiful face calm and indifferent as if it was normal, her black eyes light like water, without the slightest hint of panic. Dark red blood was smeared on her beautifully exquisite face, only increasing her charm and allure. Together with her blazing red clothes, she seemed just like a beautiful evil spirit, bewitching the world. A shocked color flitted past Dong Fengyu's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty was almost earth-shaking. A single glance was unforgettable. Bailey Hongzhuang, your battle was breathtaking. Hongzhuang, your skills aren't like a newbie's at all. It looks like our worry was meaningless. Lu Qingyue smiled, her voice gentle and mellow. Gong Shaoqing inspected Bailey Hongzhuang and didn't speak, but instead looked at her meaningfully. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips quirked into a small smile. She wasn't prepared to hide anything. After all, she'll be working with this team in the future. Even though her performance didn't match the amount of experience her identity should have, it didn't matter. Because almost nobody would ever think that she wasn't the real Bailey Hongzhuang. The leather's in perfect condition. You've completed the mission even better than required. Gong Shaoqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, his indifferent voice a little less cold. Dong Fengyu's coquettish eyes had a stunningly beautiful smile to them. It looks like our originally small team of ours got another demonic little helper. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, helping Dong Fengyu and the others disassemble the armored rhinoceros. The most valuable part of the armored rhinoceros was its leather. The leather could be used to make very powerful armors, so it was a favorite for many cultivators. But while the four were cutting apart the leather, an untimely voice was suddenly heard. Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fengyu, what a coincidence to meet again. The rude and frivolous voice was filled with provocation and hate, obviously filled with bad intentions. Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fengyu's eyes changed when they heard the voice. Yi Hucheng. Gong Shaoqing's originally frosty face became even colder, a blizzard seeming to appear in his pitch-black pupils. His whole body seemed to emit ice. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes to look the newcomers. There were 4 of them, all about 18 years old. They were led by a yellow-dressed man. His long black hair was kept high up with goat slick, and his face was dashingly handsome. In the Ross, technically means that he looked anorexically handsome, but I'm assuming the author made a mistake and meant, which means dashingly handsome. His eyes seemed sharp and ruthless like a hawk, his eagle-like nose only adding evil air. His thin, pale lips were pulled into a cruel sneer. One look was enough to know that this guy was born cruel and unreasonable. Not only Yi Hucheng, but the 3 cultivators behind him also reeked of blood and had an aura of death around them. With Bailey Hongzhuang's experience, she knew that the blood on these 4's hands wasn't small at all. Haha, truly enemies on a narrow road. Yi Hucheng smiled faintly, his eyes cold and vicious as he stared at Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fengyu. The depths of his pupils hid his extreme envy and resentment. Chapter 255 Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows. It seems like there's a pretty big grudge between their team and Yi Hucheng's. Yi Hucheng, what do you want now? Dong Fengyu's normally graceful and gentle appearance was now like ice, his deep dark eyes filled with disgust. What do I want now? Yi Hucheng smiled, his eyes slowly turning dark. That armored rhinoceros is now mine. Dong Fengyu sneered, you're dreaming. I'm dreaming. Yi Hucheng's smile slowly widened, if you don't hand it over we'll just beat you up. Plus you have 2 women, be careful, After all, my brothers here would be happy to ravage the flowers. In line with Yi Hucheng's words, the 3 men behind him all stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Qingyue, filled with interest. Yi Hucheng's eyes lit up. I didn't think that Azure Water School would actually get another beauty I haven't seen before. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang frivolously, not trying to hide the lust in his eyes at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes that were clear like water was filled with distaste and contempt. Yi Huqing's stare only made her disgusted. Where do you think you're looking? There was a clear warning in her cold voice. She hated these sort of annoying and shameless guys the most. LOL, isn't Bei-chan also annoying and shameless? 3. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's rude warning, Yi Huqing actually smiled instead of getting angry. Compared to that whore Li Qingyue, this little beauty seems to have a lot more than that gentle-as-water personality. Hearing that, Lu Qinyue's elegant, dainty face turned pale. Her figure trembled slightly as if she had suffered a huge blow. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a burst of astonishment. Anyone who saw Lu Qinyue would immediately take her for a goddess, so for Yi Huqing to call her a whore was truly surprising. For Lu Qinyue to be this panicked, there was clearly some history behind them. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was still a bit unconvinced. With Gong Xiaoqing and his group status in Azure Water School, who would dare to be so hostile? Yi Huqing and his group obviously weren't Azure Water School students, but then otherwise why would he have history with them? Master, that annoying guy's strength is comparable to Gong Xiaoqing's. Little White called out. Her phoenix eyes suddenly narrowed, a trace of understanding flitting by as Bailey Hongzhuang instantly realized something. A faint possibility floated into her mind. Maybe these 4 people were former students of Azure Water School. After all, to have that much strength at such a young age, they could be considered as cultivation geniuses, absolutely not like ordinary rich prodigal sons. Yi Huqing, don't look for trouble. Gong Xiaoqing's voice was sinisterly cold. His dark, pitch-black pupils like ice as a trace of killing intent slowly grew. I am looking for trouble, what can you do about it? Yi Huqing's smile suddenly grew icy, resentment and hatred burning in his eyes. Gong Xiaoqing, you made me fall into this situation. So do you really think that I'd give you an easy time? You brought it upon yourself. You deserve to be driven away from the school. Dong Fengyu's voice was cold and decisive, the icy color of his eyes below freezing. Haha. Yi Huqing walked towards Dong Fengyu. I deserved it? Yi Huqing suddenly raised his voice, his pitch-black pupils seeming to go mad. If it wasn't for that whore, how could I have become like this? All of this, everything is because of you guys. Yi Huqing's veins protruded. As long as Yi Huqing is alive, I will not let you guys have a peaceful life. Chapter 256. Lu Qinyue's face grew even paler, her small dainty face losing all its blood. Her eyes that were always tranquil like water was now filled with panic and fear as the fog in her eyes grew like raindrops on a pear blossom. It was truly a pitiful sight. Raindrops on a pear blossom is an idiom meaning tear-stained face of a beauty. Could it be a love triangle? Bailey Hongzhuang rubbed her chin. Although none of them specifically said what had happened, she could faintly guess a few things. A femme fatale. As Azure Water School's #1 beauty, Lu Qinyue was extremely beautiful. But Yi Huqing loved Lu Qinyue immediately and followed her, before finally being expelled from Azure Water School. But the punishment seemed too harsh. There was definitely more to the story. Little Black thought and nodded. This show probably has a lot of things worth watching. Yi Master, me watch? Inside the primordial chaos ring, Baisher shook its fluffy little head, his watery eyes filled with want. Little Black and Little White were both watching outside, so he was the only one inside the ring. He was just about to die out of boredom. Bailey Hongzhuang held her forehead. Why did her demonic beast seem to like watching shows so much? Master, wanna see? Baisher whined, tears instantly filling his watery eyes. His appearance was extremely pitiful. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a burst of helplessness. Baisher really was quite pitiful, spending almost all of his days inside the primordial chaos ring. Now isn't the time to come out, let's wait until this is over first. Baisher clearly wanted to leave the primordial chaos ring immediately, but hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's serious words, he could only obediently nod his little head. Either you leave us the leather or we fight. But the consequences? Think about it thoroughly. Yi Huqing's lips curled into a cold smile, staring icily at Lu Qinyue. His love gave birth to his hate. The leather's ours. Gong Xiaoqing's face was indifferent. Yi Huqing, leave now and I'll pretend nothing just happened. Gong Xiaoqing, spare me your high and mighty attitude. In front of others it's fine, but in front of me, what qualifications do you have? An arrogant tone is full of disdain and disgust. A loathful full face cannot surpass Gong Xiaoqing's calm appearance. He just doesn't understand how can this cold and distant ice mountain face make anyone like him. Yi Huqing, you should not go too far with this, said Lu Qingyue with a slight tremble. Her soft and beautiful face showed a sense of seriousness. Lu Qingyue, before I have always thought of you as a goddess. Now you are worthless in my eyes. You better hope to God that you do not fall in my hands. Otherwise, I will let you neither live nor die. The words burst out from his mouth. That appearance making one gnashing own teeth has already hated made him hate Lu Qingyue down to his bones. Thinking back to before, Yi Huqing was high-spirited and vigorous. Being a special recruit student, he was the shining star. Even when compared to Gong Xiaoqing, they seemed to be equally strong. However, because of Lu Qingyue the slut, all of his future and potential was destroyed. Even his name was smeared. How can he not hate her? If you will not give up, then we can only fight. Yi Huqing's mouth raised up. He looked highly arrogant, but his expression slowly gained some seriousness. The cruelness in his bones completely exploded. At this moment, the original temper disappeared in a flash. Without that wild energy, it revealed Azure Water School's true posture. The strength of a mysterious Ian middle stage burst open. A sharp large sword appeared in his hand, then quickly flashed by. An ice-cold and firm light was dispersed. Chapter 257. Gong Xiaoqing's expression stayed the same. He grasped his long sword, its ice-cold aura radiating through the air. In an instant, it seemed as if his entire being became a sword, sharp and penetrating. Ding ding ding. The two didn't even hesitate at all. The instant they grabbed their weapons, they started attacking each other. Their fiery fury surrounded them as their swords clanged and ferociously attacked each other. Their bodies were like tornadoes, their movements fierce and mean, yet as they whirled around each other, it was as if they weren't willing to part. Yi Huqing's three friends also charged towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Since the fight had already started, then why not make it a group fight? Dongfang Yu narrowed his peach blossom eyes as a sharp and dangerous light quietly flashed in his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, Lu Qingyue, in this group of three, there is one that's at the mysterious heaven initial stage. I'll take care of him. The other two are mysterious Yuan late stage. You two should try with all your effort to delay them for a period of time. I will try to resolve everything as quickly as possible. Lu Qingyue was also at the mysterious Yuan late stage and was equally matched with the other side. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was a little weaker, so it would be dangerous for her. Dongfang, I understand. Lu Qingyue took out her weapon and a guarded expression appeared on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang, you have to be extra careful. If you can't fight them directly, then try to find a way to stall for time. Dongfang Yu turned his head towards Bailey Hongzhuang and warned her. His handsome face was filled with concern and anxiety. The resentment between Yi Huqing and them was very old. It had long since turned into a full-on fight rather than touching on something and then ignoring it. The corner of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth raised slightly. Her delicate and flawlessly beautiful face did not show a trace of anxiety or nervousness. Relax, I can handle myself. As the Grand Master of an aristocratic family, what type of dangers had she never seen? A mysterious Yuan late-stage cultivator couldn't shock her and make her scared. Looking at those pitch-black, limpid phoenix eyes that were filled with self-confidence and firmness, Dongfang Yu slightly nodded his head, his heart finally settling down somewhat. Immediately, he jumped into battle. Meanwhile, Lu Qingyue was already facing one of the men. Beauty, you're so pretty that I almost can't even bear to lay a hand on you. The frivolous voice was filled with bad intentions as Chu Haichang laughed, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang teasingly. You're only at the middle stage of mysterious Ian. You're simply not my opponent. It'd be better for you to become my woman than to let your skin and flesh suffer, don't you think? Chu Haichang looked as if he was about to drool. Lu Qingyue was Yi Huqing, so naturally, he didn't dare have any thoughts about her. But this woman in front of him didn't lose out to Lu Qingyue in the least. She was truly a rare beauty. He almost didn't have the heart to destroy the flower. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright, pitch-black pupils were mocking as she looked disdainfully at the content man in front of her. Her long, shapely brows raised as she spoke, her tone cold and scornful. You. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled bewitchingly. Why don't you piss a pool of water to see what you look like first? Her cold voice was insolent and haughty. Chu Haicheng simply wasn't even in her eyes. It was as if just looking at Chu Haicheng would dirty her eyes. This guy she didn't care about at all. She stood arrogantly in front of Chu Haicheng. His originally smiling face could no longer smile as his lips twitched, a wave of anger sweeping through his eyes. Woman, you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Bailey Hongzhuang was calm and indifferent against his threat. How? Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogance was clearly shown in her one-word reply. He was only a little first-level cultivator. What qualifications did he have to speak? Chu Haicheng clearly understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude wasn't the least bit gentle. Since this woman actually provoked his dignity, he didn't mind teaching Bailey Hongzhuang the gap between them. Chapter 258. Chu Haicheng suddenly stepped forward. Strong spirit power burst out as his fist cut through the air, ruthlessly attacking Bailey Hongzhuang's face. His quick and agile fist made a whistling sound as it flew, filled with strength. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt a sharp, knife-like burst of pain on her face. But her eyes were firm as she slid away, moving like a shadow. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang slide away just like a demon, Chu Haicheng looked at his punch that was just about to hit Bailey Hongzhuang, the smile on his mouth fading when he realized that she was already no longer there. Storm Cleaver. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack had no hesitation, appearing behind Chu Haicheng like lightning, her martial skill ruthlessly striking at Chu Haicheng's back. Bang! A dull sound rang in the air. Chu Haicheng seemed just like a toad, falling flat on his face like a dog eating feces. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in her original position, a confident smile on her beautiful, clear, cold face. Rays of sunlight danced on her body, making her look even nobler in the dust, as if she would ride the wind back at any time. Chu Haicheng's face was extremely ugly. He never thought that he'd be beaten to the ground by such a weak-looking little girl. If this was spread around, he'd definitely lose all his face. Dongfang Yu and the others who were fighting had also noticed, their faces turning shocked. They originally thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would only be able to stall Chu Haicheng, and wounding him a bit would already be very good. But they hadn't thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would even be able to get the upper hand in the fight as well. Chu Haicheng's face was boiling. Letting this weak little girl knock him down really was too embarrassing. Yi Huqing frowned, his black eyes filled with disgust and contempt. His voice was as cold as ice. Trash. Getting beaten to the ground by a weak little girl with his strength, what could he be but trash? Chu Haicheng's face was extremely unsightly. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack just now wasn't soft at all, a piercing pain stabbing at his body. He was already injured. You're courting death. Chu Haicheng almost bit off his gums. His originally soft-hearted feelings had completely disappeared, replaced by a bone-deep hatred towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Do you have the strength? Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold. This guy shouldn't have thought about her like that earlier. Otherwise he would have to pay the price. Chu Haicheng snorted coldly, no longer arguing with Bailey Hongzhuang. His figure suddenly moved, a long sword now in his hands. He brandished it, sword aura attacking madly at Bailey Hongzhuang's vital parts. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sharpened. The ice-chilling sword appeared in her hands, dancing wildly in the wind, blocking the slivers of sword aura. Without the slightest intention of retreating, she charged directly at Chu Haicheng. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang charge at him without any fear, Chu Haicheng's heart sneered. Earlier he was only careless. Did Bailey Hongzhuang really think of him as trash? Ding ding ding. The two swords fought, the sounds of gold and iron clashing echoing in the air. But after Chu Haicheng's face changed a bit, Bailey Hongzhuang was actually strong enough to fight him head-on? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. She had to begin cultivating her body for martial skills as soon as possible. Only by getting stronger can she bypass levels and defeat somebody with a higher cultivation than her. Shadowless kill. The spirit power in her body poured out madly into the ice-chilling sword, making the azure sword glow brilliantly. It was filled with powerful and terrifying strength. Chapter 259. Chu Haicheng's face changed. He could clearly sense a threat from Bailey Hongzhuang's attack. This was a high-grade yellow martial skill. Bailey Hongzhuang had only just entered Azure Water School, but had actually already gotten a high-grade yellow martial skill. It must be known that wielding a high-grade yellow martial skill at the middle stage of Mysterious Ian wasn't easy at all. Plus, getting a high-grade yellow martial skill was also extremely difficult. Flaming Cloud Sword. Chu Haicheng didn't dare to be careless, fully using his middle-grade yellow martial skill to face Bailey Hongzhuang head-on. Ding! The two blades locked in the air, colliding with each other fiercely. The two skills interweaved, continuously eating up the other's energy. They were almost evenly matched. Chu Haicheng's face had already changed into a deep purple hue. His strength was higher than Bailey Hongzhuang's, but Bailey Hongzhuang's martial skill was stronger than his. So the situation had turned out like this. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips formed an enchanting smile. The contrast in her bright red clothes made her seem like an evil spirit, emitting astonishing charm. Chu Haicheng took note of Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughtful smile. He didn't know why, but his heart suddenly had a bad premonition. In a flash, the blue sword drained the red sword's energy, once again attacking Chu Haicheng. Although it was far weaker than before, it still couldn't be underestimated. Chu Haicheng hadn't thought that she would be so tenacious, and by the time he reacted and wanted to block, it was already too late. He could only turn around and escape, intending to hide from the attack. But in the end, he was still slower than the sword. His figure flew, his left shoulder drenched in blood. Chu Haicheng screamed. His left arm had almost been chopped in half by her sword. Chu Haicheng's face was deathly pale, staring at Bailey Hongzhuang in terror. He really couldn't believe that this little girl at the middle stage of Mysterious Ian could actually wound him to this extent. Her moves were strategic and ruthless. He knew his own strength, but in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt that he was too weak. That disdainful gaze of hers made him panic. It was as if she was a king, and anyone before her could only bow their heads. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of Chu Haicheng, a mocking smile on her quiet and elegant face. "You said you wanted to kill me?" Her satirizing words fell into Chu Haicheng's ears. His dark face flushed. He was completely humiliated. Today was the first time he had lost so much face. Gong Shaoqing and Yi Huqing's battle was tight, their strength equally matched. Although Gong Shaoqing had Azure Water Shoal's resources, the progress Yi Huqing made by living in the mountain ranges and fighting every day, learning through experience, wasn't small at all. The two's strength was completely equal. Determining a victor would take a very long time. Dongfang Yu was only a hair widths away from breaking through to the middle stage of Mysterious Heaven, and completely suppressed his opponent. Finishing him would only take a short amount of time. Lu Qingyue was in a rather difficult situation. Women were never the best at fighting others, let alone her opponent, which seemed to be specialized to deal with her. Under such circumstances, Lu Qingyue was little by little retreating in defeat. Her beautiful face was furious, but there were no other alternatives. After all, beauties were most scared of running into rogues, especially a gentle as water beauty like Lu Qingyue. Chapter 260. Yi Huqing and his team had originally planned to capture Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Qingyue. That way, not only would Gong Shaoqing and Dongfang Yu be at their mercy, they would also be able to get back their face. Unfortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang changed everything. Chu Haicheng wasn't able to handle Bailey Hongzhuang, and had even gotten seriously injured. So they were at a disadvantage. Dongfang Yu's face was bright as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, filled with surprise and admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength really wasn't like a normal newbie's, because even amongst Azure Water School's special enrollment students, nobody had fighting strength as stunning as hers. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stop, directly going to Lu Qingyue. Since they were part of the same group, they were naturally teammates. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come to help, Lu Qingyue sighed in relief. She really couldn't bear facing such a vulgar man. Gong Shaoqing's eyes were dark and cold, his voice bone-chillingly cold. "You lose." This time Yi Huqing lost. It wasn't that he lost to Gong Shaoqing, but his team who lost to Gong Shaoqing's. Yi Huqing's face was dark, his cold eyes sinister. He looked at Gong Shaoqing unresigned. "You're just lucky this time. Chu Haicheng, that trash." Their originally simple plan was completely destroyed because of that bastard. He actually lost to Gong Xiaoqing again. So hateful. Yi Huchen stopped attacking. There was no point in continuing the battle anymore because the outcome is already determined. He turned his gaze. Yi Huchen looks deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and waved his large hands. Let's go. After Yi Huchen and the other three left, Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu went to Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Qinyue's side. How are you two? Gong Xiaoqing's knife-like eyes lost a few bits of coldness. Those light eyes that never carried any expression showed a few senses of concern. Bailey Hongzhuang lightly shook her head. She turned her head and looks at the Lu Qinyue off to the side. Ever since Yi Huchen showed up, Lu Qinyue's condition didn't seem right. Only afraid that she didn't suffer any physical harm, but received a hard blow in the heart. Gong Xiaoqing walked forward. He walks over to Lu Qinyue's side. He starts to speak in a low voice, but it seemed to be more gentle and soft than normal. You have me here. You don't have to worry. After these words are out, the Lu Qinyue's deep dark eyes suddenly blossomed a bright and dazzling light. It seems as if Gong Xiaoqing was her sunshine that brightened up her deep darkened heart. Gongda, thank you. Her beautiful face, as small as a palm, was still a bit pale, mist in her exquisite eyes. It was like raindrops on a pear blossom, truly making one feel pity. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was a girl, looking at such a Lu Qinyue, her heart also couldn't help but grow a bit soft. A weeping beauty would always be able to shake the heart. Dongfang Yu blinked his coquettish eyes, the pink outer edges of his eyes filled with charm. Bailey Hongzhuang, I hadn't thought that your fighting strength would be so strong. Your performance was truly stunning. Bypassing levels in the fight and beating Chu Haicheng in such a short time, her combat strength really was amazing. He started to get a little curious how the two teachers had managed to find such a heaven-defying talent like Bailey Hongzhuang. A relaxed and astute look flickered by Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes, her cherry-red lips striking into an enchanting smile. You're flattering me, just flattering me. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's strange and mischievous appearance, Dongfang Yu's eyes shined. This Bailey Hongzhuang was truly hard not to like. Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qinyue were off to the side, exchanging whispers to each other. Bailey Hongzhuang and Dongfang Yu walked away, giving the pair some space. Chapter 261. You're not curious about Yi Huqing and our relationship? Dongfang Yu raised his eyebrow, smiling as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were calm and clear, the corners of her mouth curling into a faint smile. If you want to tell me, I also won't mind listening. After all, this was their affair. She couldn't open other people's scars just for the sake of satisfying her own curiosity. In fact, she also wasn't very curious because she had already guessed most of what happened. Dongfang Yu's dark eyes showed surprise and appreciation. For Bailey Hongzhuang's age, understanding like this really wasn't easy. At first, he had admired Bailey Hongzhuang's looks and resourcefulness, using the mountain bandits to get rid of her pursuers effortlessly. Now as groupmates in the mountains, he admired Bailey Hongzhuang's courage and maturity. No matter how you looked at it, she didn't have a single flaw. Yi Huqing also used to be an Azure Water School special enrollment student. Dongfang Yu finally told the whole story to Bailey Hongzhuang. In the future, they'd all be teammates and would always act together. This wasn't the first time Yi Huqing tried to find trouble with them, and probably also not the last. Knowing the whole story would help the team to harmonize better. From Dongfang Yu, Bailey Hongzhuang got to fully know the ins and outs of the story. So originally, Yi Huqing and Gong Xiaoqing's strength were evenly matched, and it could be said that they were two leading spotlight figures in Azure Water School. Gong Xiaoqing was cold, preferring to cultivate alone. Yi Huqing was comparatively cheerful and liked to make friends. Lu Qinyue, Azure Water School's #1 beauty, had already liked Gong Xiaoqing from a long time ago. But Yi Huqing liked Lu Qinyue. Originally, there was no enmity between Gong Xiaoqing and Yi Huqing. But then when Yi Huqing found out that the one in Lu Qinyue's heart was Gong Xiaoqing, he was filled with unwillingness and anger. He looked for a chance to compete with Gong Xiaoqing, intending to prove himself as Azure Water School's #1 so Lu Qinyue could know that he was the best. But for Gong Xiaoqing, such a boring competition wasn't interesting at all. One day, Yi Huqing sent a slip of paper to Lu Qinyue, telling her to meet in the mountains. Lu Qinyue thought it was Gong Xiaoqing and went to the mountains. When Yi Huqing saw Lu Qingyue actually come, he was filled with happiness. But then Lu Qingyue suddenly turned and walked away abruptly, stirring up Yi Huqing's long-suppressed anger. In that moment he rushed at Lu Qingyue intending to force her. Fortunately, Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu were also cultivating in the mountains and saved Lu Qingyue. Otherwise the result would have been too horrible to even think about. Because of this, Yi Huqing was punished and expelled from Azure Water School. Since then, there had always been hate and animosity between the two teams. So it's like that. Bailey Honghao's eyes were filled with understanding. It was more or less the same as what she had guessed earlier. Lu Qingyue suffered a lot of trauma and was muddle-headed for a long time after that. Gong Xiaoqing thought it was because of him, so he looks after Lu Qingyue a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. I couldn't tell. It looks like Gong Xiaoqing is still quite righteous. Although he's cold and not good at speaking, his personal character is actually rather good. Dongfang Yu winked brightly, a joking smile on his lips. Otherwise I wouldn't be friends with him. Master. Baisher's two small paws kept digging into the ground, his watery eyes filled with anticipation. Didn't they agree that he could come out? How could she forget after a chat? Little Black and Little White sympathized. In fact, they had also never got to go out before. Chapter 262. Bailey Hongzhuang had only just remembered the unwilling, idle little guy, and immediately brought him out of the primordial chaos ring. Baisher's whole body was covered in soft, fluffy fur, making him seem just like a cute puppy as he incessantly pulled on Bailey Hongzhuang's robes. Master. Bailey Hongzhuang put Baisher on her shoulder. Baisher's face was very happy, intimately rubbing against the crook of Bailey Hongzhuang's neck. She patted Baisher's head. Although she still didn't know what sort of demonic beast he was, Bailey Hongzhuang still liked him very much. Dongfang Yu looked Baisher, who had suddenly appeared beside Bailey Hongzhuang, his deep eyes flashing with surprise. Who's this little guy? My contract beast. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled beautifully and then frowned a little. Although I still don't know what kind of demonic beast it is. Contract beast. Dongfang Yu was startled. Such a contract beast. Could it be that this young noble miss is raising it just as an ornamental contract beast? But that doesn't seem to match Bailey Hongzhuang's usual temperament. This little guy is a dog? Dongfang Yu reached out to pet Baisher as he spoke. The originally docile and obedient Baisher suddenly bared its fangs, glaring at Dongfang Yu viciously. Dongfang Yu pulled back his hand, his eyes still smiling. I also don't know what sort of demonic beast this is. Seeing Dongfang Yu think of Baisher as a dog, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with helplessness. Could it be? Baisher really was a dog? Her legendary reputation as she had originally wanted to become a famous existence of Shangxian continent, but it seemed like there was already a misstep in her plan. At this moment, Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue were about done talking. When they turned and saw Baisher on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, their faces were both filled with astonishment. This is Bailey Honghao's contract beast. Dongfang Yu introduced them. Gong Xiaoqing. Do you know what kind of demonic beast this is? Gong Xiaoqing inspected the plump, little adorable thing before looking at Bailey Hongzhuang thoughtfully. I don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang rolled her eyes. Just now, she had clearly seen Gong Xiaoqing smirk a little at her contract beast's uselessness. Contract beasts weren't something easy at all. Every cultivator only had one chance to get a contract beast, so if one got the opportunity, they would definitely never waste it. Though of course, wanting to find a contract beast wasn't at all easy. Many cultivators were so poor that they couldn't even afford the chance to contract one. As Azure Water School's special enrollment students, their futures were limitless, so wanting to get a contract beast wasn't at all an impossible task. A contract beast's biggest use was its power in a battle. But Bailey Hongzhuang's contract beast only seemed to have one purpose, acting cute. But it's cute. Gong Xiaoqing walked forward, his voice falling into Bailey Honghao's ears. 3 black lines appeared on Bailey Honghao's forehead. That sentence should be considered a compliment, right? Then how come from Gong Xiaoqing's mouth, it sounded like something completely different? Dongfang Yu and Gong Xiaoqing continued to cut the armored rhinoceros until it was completely dissected. On the side, Lu Qingyue waited with Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, your contract beast is so adorable. Lu Qinyue's beautiful eyes were bright, completely helpless against Baisher's cute appearance. Chapter 263. Can I hug it? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Baisher. Recalling his previous aggression towards Dong Fangyu, she shook her head. This little guy doesn't like anyone else but me, so he might bite. Oh. Lu Qinyue was somewhat disappointed but still smiled. He really knows his master. Baisher glanced at Lu Qinyue lazily before happily snuggling into Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. A bit uneasy. Little Black and Little White glanced at each other. Little Black muttered angrily, "This guy stole our seats. He's a contract beast just like us, but look at the difference in treatment." Little White curled his lips. Baisher was lying happily on their master's shoulders, while they could only pretend to be ornaments on her head. Heart really hurts. Little White clutched his chest and dropped his head. So depressing. You guys are also my contract beasts? Bailey Hongzhuang's clear phoenix eyes were filled with confusion. We never made a contract, have we? Even though Little Black and Little White had been calling her master ever since the primordial chaos ring acknowledged her as its owner, they never actually made a contract together before. Master, when you contracted with the primordial chaos ring, you also contracted with us. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes became even more confused. Even supposing Little Black and Little White's words were correct, wasn't everyone only allowed to contract one demonic beast? I have 3 contract beasts? Little Black eyes curved until they seemed just like crescent moons. Master, you're the owner of the primordial chaos ring, so of course you're different from normal people. There's no limit to the number of contract beasts you can get. As your strength grows, the amount of contract beasts you may get also increases. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes brightened up. Although she only found out about this today, having no limit to her contract beasts really was so convenient. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips stretched into a smile. The only regret she had about her contract with Baisher was his lack of fighting power. It must be known that until your strength reached a certain level, contract beasts were very, very helpful in a tough battle. Since she had missed such a huge assist, she was obviously a bit regretful. But since now that regret no longer existed, she was naturally very happy. Master Baisher can see other people, so when can us too? Little Black asked miserably, his face filled with hardship. Speaking of that, they were here first, but Baisher had gotten the first victory already. Bailey Hongzhuang felt herself blush with shame. It wasn't that she was unwilling to let the 2 fluffballs to see others, but who told her contract beasts to be so outstanding? So far, no matter if it was Baisher or the 2 fluffballs, she didn't know the species of any of them. Baisher looked like he was just a little puppy, but the 2 fluffballs, they were just too conspicuous. Wait for me to get stronger. Her dark phoenix eyes were serious and determined. Baisher looked completely harmless, so others weren't that envious. But Little Black and Little White were really too special. Not everybody could stay untempted. Little Black and Little White looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious face and didn't continue to talk. They understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Dong Fangyu quickly put away the leather. There was nothing else of value left on the armored rhinoceros's body. Its flesh wasn't tasty, so they just left it there. So many demonic beasts rushing out at full power was truly a horrifying scene. If the horde overtook you, the only thing left was death. Gong Shaoqing returned very quickly, his handsome, cold face ashen. Quickly run. It's a demonic beast tide. Hearing his words, Dong Fangyu and Lu Qinyue's faces turned deathly pale. With their cultivation levels, they might not be able to survive the demonic beast tide. Demonic beast tide? Lu Qinyue's face was wan, her voice somewhat unbelieving. This sort of rare 100-year event was actually happening to them right now. Chapter 264. We're already done with the armored rhinoceros, so let's head back. Dong Fangyu's voice was gentle. Originally we could have stayed in Luoyun Mountains for a while, but since we made a bet, it's better for us to not tarry. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Then let's leave early. The 4 no longer stopped, preparing to leave Luoyun Mountains. But at this moment, countless demonic beasts suddenly let out a loud cry, rising and falling in succession, echoing through all of Luoyun Mountain. Roar! The loud, terrifying sounds never stopped. The demonic beasts seemed to be provoked and restless. like the pack was in chaos. The floor began to tremble as a strange mood spread through the air. The four's faces all turned grave, sensing something bad. What happened? Lu Qinyue's beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment and worry. She had gone to Luoyun Mountains many times before, but this was the first time she had encountered such a situation. Gong Xiaoqing's face was heavy. You guys wait here, I'll take a look. Gong Deji, be careful. The moment Gong Xiaoqing turned to go deep inside the mountain range, Lu Qinyue's voice rang out. Gong Xiaoqing nodded. I'll be back very soon. Dongfang, take care of them. Don't worry. Right now, Dongfang Yu's face no longer had his usual teasing smile. His handsome face was prudent and serious, actually giving people an entirely different impression. The demonic beast's howls grew even more fierce, the sounds of their roars intertwining in the sky. Their deafening bellows were almost enough to make Bailey Honghaung's ears bleed. The noises were aggressive, and with so many different roars joining together, it was filled with spirit power. Could be said as a magical song. Bailey Hongzhuang's enchantingly delicate face was serious. Staring at the scene in front of her, a terrible premonition appeared in her heart. She had run into something like this before. It was a demonic beast tide. However, at that time, she was quite strong, so even though it had been a narrow escape, she still wasn't wounded by the demonic beast tide. But right now, she was just a newbie that had only begun to cultivate. Master, it seems like a demonic beast tide. Little White's words smashed apart Bailey Honghaung's hope. This is dangerous. You have to leave Luoyun Mountains now, or you might lose your life. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with helplessness. It was her first time at Luoyun Mountains. Her luck was simply too good. A demonic beast tide was the same as all the demonic beasts in the mountains coming together. It was very rare. All the demonic beasts were stampeding madly in the same direction. Anyone in their way would be directly trampled underfoot. The demonic beasts seemed to lose their wisdom and only knew how to charge forwards wildly, no matter what the species. All the demonic beasts on Luoyun Mountain, how terrifying was that number? So many demonic beasts rushing out at full power was truly a horrifying scene. If the horde overtook you, the only thing left was death. Gong Xiaoqing returned very quickly, his handsome, cold face ashen. Quickly run. It's a demonic beast tide. Hearing his words, Dongfang Yu and Lu Qinyue's faces turned deathly pale. With their cultivation levels, they might not be able to survive the demonic beast tide. Demonic beast tide? Lu Qinyue's face was wan, her voice somewhat unbelieving. This sort of rare 100-year event was actually happening to them right now. Chapter 265. The four didn't even have time to talk with each other before madly running towards the exit. Right now, 1 second could spell the difference between life and death. Rumble. The floor constantly shook. Screams of terror sounded behind them, becoming louder and louder as the earth trembled stronger and stronger. The destruction power was even bigger than an earthquake. One moment of carelessness would leave you lying on the floor. The four all ran at their fastest speed possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's moves were swift, creating multiple shadows with nimble steps, just like a ghost. Gong Xiaoqing's group of 3 speed wasn't bad. As special enrollment students, they all naturally had their own cards. Right now, they had already escaped from the deepest parts of Luoyun Mountain. But how could running out of what took several days' worth to reach be so easy? Run faster. It's a demonic beast tide. Cries of alarm were everywhere as many cultivators ran beside Bailey Hongzhuang. When everyone saw the tide of demonic beasts, they all immediately dropped whatever they were doing and ran as fast as they could towards the exit. A demonic beast's greatest strengths were their power and speed, so their current pace was utterly terrifying. The tide ran over the earth, breaking down a countless number of trees. It was a disaster. Gong Xiaoqing poured spirit power in both his legs, making him even faster. But he then discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang's speed was even faster than him? Dongfang Yu was also astonished. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements now were even more outstanding than when she had been fighting the armored rhinoceros. It seemed like her movement martial arts really were unusual. Bailey Hongzhuang had the weakest cultivation, but Lu Qinyue was the slowest. Her beautiful flower-like face had long turned pale. Gong Xiaoqing directly grabbed Lu Qinyue's hand, boosting her speed. Sensing the warmth of his hand, happiness flickered through Lu Qinyue's eyes. Gong Deji was holding her hand. But under such dangerous circumstances, Lu Qinyue had no time to lose herself in joy. Only by surviving could something be possible. Running at such fast speeds, everyone's spirit power was being consumed extremely quickly. Before long, they all started devouring their qi returning pills. At such a crucial moment, qi returning pills were extremely important. The curtain of night slowly descended. Bailey Hongzhuang's group still continued to run. Because of the seemingly never-tired demonic beasts chasing after them, the distance between them had slowly drawn closer. Bursts of pain came from all over their bodies. They had inevitably run into some brambles and thorns, riddling their bodies with cuts and scars. After running non-stop for an entire day, their bodies had reached its limits and their consumption speed of the qi returning pills was truly frightening. Lu Qinyue only had 4 qi returning pills left. She knew that Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu had both already ran out, so there were only these 4 pills left. Who knew how long they would last? She passed 3 of the pills to Gong Xiaoqing and the rest, a flicker of sadness going past Lu Qinyue's watery eyes. Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu's faces were extremely ugly. They thought that the mission would be easy and didn't do a lot of preparation. Nobody thought that they'd end up running into a demonic beast tide. Qinyue, it's better to keep the qi returning pills for yourself. Gong Xiaoqing's voice was indifferent but held obvious traces of concern. Chapter 266. Now their probability of surviving was getting smaller and smaller. If the remaining qi returning pills were to be split, probably none of them would survive. Dongfang Yu also didn't accept the pill. He thought the same as Gong Xiaoqing. Gong Deji Dongfang, with my speed it's even more impossible to survive. You guys have to persevere. Lu Qinyue's eyes were firm and decisive, directly shoving the pills to Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu. Out of the 4, Lu Qinyue was the slowest. If it wasn't for her, everybody's speed would have been a lot faster. She didn't want to implicate everyone. While everyone was trying to evade the qi returning pills, Bailey Honghang suddenly spoke up. I still have some qi returning pills too, so you guys don't have to worry. She had never liked being unprepared, so even though the mission they came on today wasn't very dangerous, she still prepared a lot of things just in case. But she never thought that this time they'd actually have to use it. When they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, the 3's eyes all turned to look at her brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was as calm as usual. As a pill master, the thing she lacked most were pills she could refine. The ingredients needed to refine a qi returning pill wasn't expensive, and nor was it hard to refine one, so Bailey Hongzhuang had already prepared a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang took out 3 porcelain bottles and handed them out to the other 3. Dongfang Yu opened the bottle and peeked inside. Astonishingly, there were 10 qi returning pills inside. 1 person, 1 bottle. Wouldn't that mean Bailey Hongzhuang had at least 40 qi returning pills? Weren't you just coming to learn through experience? Why did it seem like you came to sell pills instead? Dongfang Yu really wanted to ask. Up to now, the number of cultivators he had seen wasn't small, but this was the first time he saw a cultivator like Bailey Hongzhuang bring along so many pills. Too rich. Although qi returning pills were only first-rank pills because many cultivators wanted them, the price wasn't at all cheap. Bailey Hongzhuang giving them so much at once was really grand. Lu Qinyue blinked, startled. Even as a pill master, she never carried around so many pills. This amount was truly enough to make others shocked. When Gong Xiaoqing's face with facial nerve paralysis saw the pills, a crack appeared on his icy demeanor as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang deeply. Thank you. At such a dangerous moment with these pills there was hope. For them, Bailey Hongzhuang's act was extremely significant. Her beautiful face had a brilliant, careless smile. It's fine. If it still isn't enough, I have some more. When the rushing Dongfang Yu heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, he tripped. This girl. Does she want people to die from anger? Gong Xiaoqing was silent. Coming across such a prodigal and generous teammate, he really didn't know what to say. Lu Qinyue's eyes were thoughtful. As a pill master, she knew a lot about pills. Qi returning pills were an item that would be fought for by cultivators until there was not even a single one left. To have so many qi returning pills, what kind of background did you need to have? Or maybe Bailey Hongzhuang herself was a pill master. Lu Qinyue didn't leave out the possibility. After all, she herself was a pill master, so of course it was possible that Bailey Hongzhuang was one too. Chapter 267. Everybody rushed forward. Behind them, a blood-curdling scream of a cultivator could occasionally be heard. Almost none of the cultivators had prepared enough pills, and their spirit power had long been completely consumed in their hurry to escape. At such a critical time, if they were to slow down even a bit, it'd be the end. Everybody's hearts were filled with dread, afraid that they would be the ones to fall. But even as Bailey Honghoung and the rest ran with all their strength, the horde of demonic beasts only got closer and closer. Rumble! A huge sound echoed. Suddenly, the demonic beast tide was only a few hundred away, and was approaching at a terrifying speed. They were done for. That thought appeared in everybody's minds. Under the tide of demonic beasts, there was simply nowhere to hide. But at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest suddenly came upon two paths. Take the left road. Gong Shaoqing immediately chose a direction. A mountain peak was in the middle of the two paths. Not even a demonic beast tide could stomp a mountain flat. There was a secret cave on the left road. If they could hide in the cave, they might be able to survive. Gong Shaoqing pulled Lu Qinyue's hand, quickly running to the left road. The other cultivators had long lost their own judgment, so when they heard Gong Shaoqing's words, they all immediately ran to the left path as well. If the demonic beast could be said to have gone from slow to fast, seeing the cultivators in front of them scramble around like chickens, their speed grew even faster. The distance instantly closed by several tens of meters. Now, all the cultivators could clearly sense the demonic beast's breath behind their backs. Dongfang Yu reached out his hand, trying to pull Bailey Hongzhuang back. But because of all the brambles and trees they had to evade while escaping, the distance between them had grown a bit wide. Right now, Bailey Hongzhuang was very close to going on the right road. In her current circumstances, there was no way for her to change paths alone, because if she slowed down even a bit, the only thing left was death. Bailey Honghoung also reached out her hand. The only way to get to the left road was by accepting Dongfang Yu's help. But the other cultivators were running as if they were mad, separating Dongfang Yu and Bailey Honghoung's outstretched hands. Bailey Honghoung! Dongfang Yu's handsome face was pale. They had missed their only opportunity. Missing it would separate them in a way made them no different from the separate entities of yin and yang. Damn! Bailey Honghoung ground her teeth. This group of cultivators was just too hateful. Now the situation was already irreversible. She could only continue on the right road. After reaching the crossroad, the demonic beast tide split up into two groups and continued to give chase. Master, it's dangerous. Little Black's face was serious. There was only a bit more than 5 meters between them and the terrifying demonic beast tide. At this point, even they didn't know what to do. Is there really no way? Her beautiful, delicate face was unwilling and helpless. She absolutely could not accept this kind of death. There's a cliff ahead. Little White suddenly spoke. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes sharpened as her heart slowly came to a decision. Since she would die anyway, it was better to run to the cliff and jump than be trampled underfoot by the demonic beasts. Chapter 268. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed accelerated once more. Since she had already lost her will to survive, she might as well go all out. The originally constantly nearing gap between her and beasts was slowly starting to widen. Almost all the cultivators heard Gong Shaoqing's words and charged into the left lane. The other cultivators were all dead under the demonic beast tide, so Bailey Hongzhuang was the only one still running on the right lane. The precipice was just ahead. A decisive light appeared in Bailey Honghoung's dark eyes. Right now she had no other choice. Behind her, the demonic beasts were throwing themselves towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Their mouths opened up wide as cold light reflected off their sharp, bloody teeth. But just as the demonic beast's jaws were about to clamp onto Bailey Hongzhuang's neck, there was suddenly a loud roar. Roar! A young and tender, but fierce suddenly came from Baisher's throat, his small and weak figure forming a huge contrast with the three big, ferocious demonic beasts. It was extremely arrogant. But when Baisher roared, the originally 3 lunging demonic beasts actually stopped, trembling as they looked at him. Under that roar, the mad demonic beast tide actually stopped. Roar! Baisher roared once more. and the originally baffled demonic beasts started to crawl on the floor, their huge, terrifying figures actually shivering on the ground. Bailey Honghong's dark phoenix eyes were filled with shock and amazement, her figure which was about to jump down the cliff abruptly halting. Bailey Honghong stared at the prostrating demonic beasts in front of her. Their reaction seemed as if they were instinctively afraid of Baisher. What kind of joke was this? These huge, terrifying demonic beasts were actually scared of the little guy on her shoulder? Little Black and Little White also looked at Baisher, astonished. They didn't expect that this little guy would actually have such an ability. Baisher lazily stretched before once again snuggling back on Bailey Honghong's shoulder. He was sleeping, but those repulsive guys just had to disturb him. Bailey Honghong was stunned. It seemed like her previous judgment was wrong. Baisher really wasn't a normal demonic beast, but its deviously cute appearance was simply to deceive. What kind of strength was enough that a single roar was enough to stop a demonic beast tide from moving? Nobody else had the power to but the demonic beasts at the very top of the pyramid. Demonic beasts and humans cultivated differently. For humans, no matter how strong the parents were, their children all still had to cultivate from the beginning. But demonic beasts had a more hierarchical concept. If the species was strong, then the offspring would be strong. Even a newly born demonic beast, with its species' deterrence power, could scare all the other demonic beasts away. Clearly, Baisher's species wasn't simple. Bailey Honghong frowned, even more confused. She knew about almost all of the top demonic beasts, but how come she never saw anything like Baisher? But regardless, none of that mattered. Just knowing Baisher's amazingness was enough. The demonic beast tide was stopped, and she had managed to survive without jumping down a cliff. Thinking of this, Bailey Honghong couldn't help but sigh with relief. Baisher, let these guys leave. The corners of Bailey Honghong's lips curled into an enchanting smile. Ordering so many demonic beasts felt so good. Roar! Baisher roared once more. The other demonic beasts glanced quickly at him before running away frantically, as if they had received amnesty. Chapter 279. In a flash, all the demonic beasts flew away in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Baisher, who was on her shoulder. His face was filled with pride and anticipation as he happily rubbed against Bailey Hongzhuang, clearly wanting praise. But Bailey Hongzhuang just smacked Baisher's head, retorting angrily, "You could have just roared and solved everything. You almost let your master jump off a cliff." Now as she remembered how she had given up hope and nearly fell into despair, this little guy could have long fixed everything with just a call. When the eagerly awaiting Baisher was smacked instead of rewarded, his big watery eyes filled with a misty sheen as his little mouth formed a pout. Its small body curled up in Bailey Hongzhuang's bosom, appearing very pitiful. Even though she knew that the little guy was deliberately acting pitiful, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer had the heart to scold him anymore. Instead of taking out the demonic crystal from the armored rhinoceros to give to Baisher, the tears in his eyes instantly disappeared when he saw the crystal. His eyes shined brightly as he immediately snatched the crystal and began to gnaw on it. Really, this guy truly was best at acting cute. Bailey Hongzhuang put Baisher back onto her shoulders. Her plight was over, but what about Gong Shaoqing and the others? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, she suddenly heard a small sound. Her eyes turned cold. There was actually somebody here. Bailey Hongzhuang's spirit power surged through her body as she cautiously approached the direction of the sound, prepared to fight. At the back of the mountain, a big boulder blocked her sight. The other person was clearly behind that boulder. "Who's there?" Her cold voice was laced with a warning as she stared at the rock. "Miss, I'm only here to avoid the demonic beast tide." A hoarse, low voice came from behind the boulder, causing Bailey Hongzhuang to frown a little. From her voice, she could tell that he was in a weak state and injured. Life-threateningly injured. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes were sharp. She did not want Baisher's secret to be exposed. Holding the ice-chilling sword, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly sneaked past the boulder. A man was lying on the boulder, black hair pouring down in torrents beside him. His handsome face was like a piece of art carved by the gods themselves, sword-like eyebrows long and straight like a willow. His eminent eyes were deep like a black hole, cold and ruthless. He was wearing a soft black robe, the color deep and inky, propitious clouds embroidered on it with silver thread. It was luxurious yet subdued. The man's robes were slightly loose, revealing his exquisite collarbones and chin, radiating sex appeal. If you looked down just a bit, dark blood had already dyed the robes red. With only a glance, Bailey Honghoung could already tell the injury was very serious. But even in such a situation, the man actually still smiled. His smile was cold and violent, but it was still impossible to deny his handsome face, still filled with charm and fascination. In short, this man was extremely dangerous. Bailey Honghoung's intuition told her that the man wasn't simple and wouldn't allow himself to be touched. It's better to just leave. Just as Bailey Honghoung turned around to leave, an icy voice rang, "Woman, why don't we make a deal?" A trace of interest flitted past Ma Yunju's dark eyes. When he saw Bailey Honghoung and Baisher, he thought they were rather interesting. Chapter 270. The grand and stately demonic beast king actually acknowledged a mere mysterious earth middle-stage cultivation woman as its master, and what was even more interesting is that the woman didn't even know the one she had contracted with was the demonic beast king. While he was sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang, he hadn't missed the trace of ruthless killing intent flicking past her eyes. It seemed like this woman wasn't as simple as she looked. Right now, his injury was very serious. If he could get the demonic beast king's blood, he'd be able to heal much faster. Not interested. Bailey Honghoung continued to walk away without any hint of hesitation. What about if I know who the contract beast sitting on your shoulder is? Bailey Hongzhuang's footsteps paused as she slowly turned to look at Ma Yunju, her penetrating eyes a bit sly. She asked coldly and bluntly, "Conditions?" "The little guy's blood." Ma Yunju's voice was indifferent but then added, "To treat my injury?" When Ma Yunju brought up Baisher's blood, Bailey Hongzhuang had already decided to refuse. But then when she heard that it was to treat his wound, she became a little hesitant. "How about I cure your wound and you tell me Baisher's identity?" Ma Yunju's eyes flashed as he replied, "Woman, aren't you afraid that I'll kill you after you treat me? Don't forget that your injury is under my control." Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent, her bright, crystal-clear eyes filled with wisdom and self-confidence. Although she was definitely inferior to this man in terms of strength, he also wasn't her opponent when it came to medical techniques. Her simply reply actually hit a cold front. Ma Yunju glanced at Bailey Honghoung thoughtfully. "It's a deal." Bailey Honghoung slowly kneeled next to Ma Yunju. "Speak." Ma Yunju's eyes were a bit bright. Up to now, he had never seen a woman dare to be so close to him. And the most interesting thing was that even though this woman was so weak, she was still brave enough to face him confidently. He was always an existing feared by everybody, so talking to a woman this closely was a new experience. "The little guy on your shoulder is the demonic beast king." When she heard him speak, Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes lit up, a wave of shock and amazement washing over her heart. She looked at the king character on Baisher's forehead and understood. Demonic beast kings were the kings of demonic beasts, classified as a mythical race. Demonic beast kings and other demonic beasts of the mythical race were a mystery and held power acknowledged by all the other demonic beasts. Also, there could only be one demonic beast king at a time. Only when the previous generation dies could the next generation be born. Even though she also never once saw what a demonic beast king looked like, she hadn't expected that this seemingly powerless, cute little guy would actually be the demonic beast king. She didn't doubt Ma Yunju's words at all. This was the most probable answer. Ma Yunju watched Bailey Honghoung's expressions change. It seemed like that was actually in her expectations. Gong Xiaoqing and the others managed to successfully hide in the cave. Watching the demonic beast zip by unceasingly outside, the three's hearts were all shocked. Demonic beast tides were truly too terrifying. Even though they heard about its dangers before, actually experiencing it made them clearly understand that their previous thoughts were far too simple. Lu Qingyue deeply sighed, her beautiful face still pale. This feeling of surviving the calamity truly made one feel endlessly grateful. Chapter 271. Check back soon. Such a terrifying demonic beast tide. If they hadn't luckily managed to find a cave to hide in, they long would have been trampled to death. Dong Fengyu's face was extremely difficult to describe. His eyes filled with a constrained fury. Bailey Hongzhuang, it was only one step. If he had managed to grab Bailey Hongzhuang back then, the current situation wouldn't be like this. Gong Xiaoqing's eyes also revealed his self-blame and unhappiness. If it wasn't for that guy disrupting things, how would Bailey Hongzhuang have sunk into such a dangerous situation? Although they didn't know what would happen on the right side road, they could already foresee what would happen from here. Bailey Hongzhuang had no chance of survival. It was their first time taking Bailey Hongzhuang out for a mission, and the teachers entrusted her to their care. But they had allowed Bailey Hongzhuang to lose her life. Lu Qinyue's face was pale, her slim, fair hands covering her mouth as her eyes turned misty. They were just hunting demonic beasts together a few hours ago. Nobody expected that in such a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang would lose her life. Dongfang, you could only feel a hard-to-describe pain and fury burning in the bottom of his stomach with no way to vent it. This was the first time he experienced such a feeling. It was strange but suffocating. Damn it! Dongfang Yu grabbed the collar of the elated man next to him, directly pushing the man into the air. If it wasn't for this man running between them midway, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't have died. Bang! Dongfang Yu ruthlessly punched the man's face, sending the man flying several meters away. Panic appeared on the man's face. He immediately understood why Dongfang Yu had hit him. Although his heart was somewhat sullen, he didn't dare to say anything. After all, Dongfang Yu was just too strong. Plus, it was him who was in the wrong. At such a critical juncture, he only wanted to save his own life. So even if he could choose all over again, he would still pick the same option. Bang bang bang. Dongfang Yu continued to punch the man's body, treating him as if he was a punching bag. But even though he did that, he was still unable to vent the suffocating pain and anger burning in his heart. The man was badly battered and spouting blood, but could only receive it passively. Gong Xiaoqing just stared at the man coldly, finally also sending the man flying into a rock with a kick. Clearly, Gong Xiaoqing's heart was also unpleasant. Lu Qinyue's eyes were filled with shock and confusion when she saw Gong Xiaoqing's kick. She had almost never seen Gong Xiaoqing do such a thing before. It was also the first time she had seen Dongfang Yu act so emotionally. As cultivators, they never really experienced the feeling of losing a comrade. But still, Dongfang Yu had never been as angry as today. Gong Deji Dongfang. Hongzhuang's accident was something none of us thought would happen. Lu Qinyue comforted. But Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu didn't reply. They clearly didn't care the slightest bit about Lu Qinyue's consultation. I hope Bailey Hongzhuang will be alright. Dongfang Yu's expression was sincere and earnest. Even though he knew the probability was extremely small, he still held a gleam of hope. Oh! Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the wound going across almost half of Ma Yunju's body, astonishment flashing in her eyes. This wound, if it was just the slightest bit deeper, Ma Yunju definitely won't even have a single chance of surviving. But even like this, if Ma Yunju continued to dilly-dally, he'd be throwing away his life. The wound was faintly black. Ma Yunju had been poisoned. Chapter 272. But even with such a serious injury, this man was still able to sit here calmly to watch the show. Such a temperament was truly exceptional. Hurts? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. His injury was truly terrible. Ma Yunju's ice-cold face suddenly turned stiff as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, astonished as if he couldn't believe what he had heard. Painful? Nobody had ever asked him if it was painful before. In his world, there was only success and failure. There were never any activities or emotions like pain. Never had a person asked him how he felt, so when this strange woman asked, his heart couldn't help but tremble for a split second. Seeing Ma Yunju staying silent, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer hesitated. If she continued to delay it, Ma Yunju's life would truly be lost. Opening her bag of needles, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully began to detoxify Ma Yunju. She had to dissolve the poison before binding his wound. When Ma Yunju saw her moving so busily and resolutely, a trace of confusion crossed through his dark eyes. What was this type of medical treatment? Could it be those long-lost acupuncture techniques? If it was another person, he probably would have believed that they were only trying to stall for time until he died. But seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead beaded with sweat, he knew that she was seriously trying to help him. She was truly an interesting woman, still keeping her promises. With Bailey Hongzhuang's acupuncture, The black color in his wound slowly faded away, turning back into a bright scarlet red. Ma Yunju's eyes gradually changed. He seemed to have found an amazing girl. The yunmong, cloudweed, he had swallowed was extremely poisonous and wasn't something an ordinary person could do anything about. Yet, this girl had actually managed to completely dissolve it. Bailey Hongzhuang meticulously finished everything, her actions familiar and nimble. A high-grade medicine was applied to his wound before bandaging Ma Yunju securely. Done. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes, reaching out to hand Ma Yunju a white, porcelain bottle. There are 3 pills inside. Take one every day and the poison in you should be completely eradicated. Lowering her voice tone, Bailey Hongzhuang stood up. I'm going. She still didn't know what had happened with Dongfang Yu and the others, so she had to go meet up with them as soon as she could. What's your name? Ma Yunju's voice was muffled and hoarse as his eyes flickered with light. Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment before replying. Bailey Hongzhuang. Ma Yunju. Taking note of his name, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly walked back to Dongfang Yu's and the others' direction. She could only wish that the 3 of them were safe and sound. From Gong Xiaoqing's previously confident words, she knew that they should be hiding away in a cave. If there wasn't an accident, the 3 of them shouldn't be in danger. Dongfang Yu and the others were still in the cave, waiting for the demonic beast tide to pass to no avail. There were simply too many. Even after waiting for half the day, the tide still didn't finish, leaving them completely helpless. When will this damn demonic beast tide finish? Dongfang Yu's normally gentle and graceful appearance was gone, replaced by a tsunami surging in the depths of his eyes. Gong Xiaoqing kept silent, his eyes also dark and gloomy. The mood was suffocating. When the people in the cave saw Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu's faces, they didn't dare to even breathe. Azure Water School's special enrollment students were not only extremely strong, but also had limitless potential. They simply weren't their opponents. Seeing the man beaten half dead on the ground, they couldn't help but shrink back their heads. They absolutely couldn't provoke them. Otherwise, an even more miserable fate would probably fall onto them. Chapter 273. The demonic beast tide rushed past, making the ground tremble violently. The force made some of the rock in the cave crumble. The cavern was tottering as if it would collapse at any time. Everyone was scared and on the edge. They could only pray for the demonic beast tide to quickly pass. At last, the floor's trembling slowly diminished as all of the demonic beasts passed them. Dongfang Yu quickly left the cave, going in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction without the slightest hesitation. No emotion could be seen on his handsome, jade-like face. His mood was extremely complicated. He truly hoped that nothing happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, but was also worried that she would hate him for his uselessness. Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qinyue followed, their steps extremely fast. They all wanted to hurry to Bailey Hongzhuang. After Dongfang Yu and the others left, everyone else in the cave all couldn't help but sigh with relief. Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the left path. The demonic beast completely devastated the surrounding area, turning it into a mess. The 100-something-year-old trees were all toppled over, ground into a fine dust. No matter what time it was, the havoc left by the demonic beast tide would always be terrifying. But after the demonic beast tide was over, both Azure Water School and the Mercenary Trade Union would suffer a big loss. Master, there's 3 people approaching us at a high speed, Little White reported. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright phoenix eyes were filled with smiles. If she was correct, those 3 should be Dongfang Yu and the others. Soon 3 specks of light appeared, zooming towards her at a high speed. They really were Dongfang Yu and the others. Dongfang Yu, Gong Xiaoqing, and Lu Qinyue's hearts were filled with worry as they rushed here, cutting apart everything that was in their way. The air was a bit bloody. The number of cultivators crushed to death by the demonic beasts wasn't few at all. While they were hurrying forward, a fiery red-robed figure suddenly appeared in their vision. In such messy and empty surroundings, the enchanting red figure seemed exceptionally eye-catching. Bailey Hongzhuang? Dongfang Yu rubbed his eyes, staring at that smiling face in front of him, shocked. What? Is seeing me very strange? A smile blossomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Under the bright sunshine, her smile seemed even more charming. She didn't miss the worry and joy reflected in Dongfang Yu's eyes. And although the time they had known each other hadn't been long, he wanted to consider her a close friend. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed out to look for her as soon as the demonic beast tide finished. "You're safe." Dong Fengyu's voice was filled with doubt as he inspected Bailey Hongzhuang from top to bottom, discovering that she didn't have any serious injuries. Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue looked at the completely unharmed Bailey Hongzhuang, their eyes filled with amazement. Their tense faces relaxed as they smiled with relief. "I'm all right." Her clear, beautiful face had a bright smile as her eyes seemed to light up. One is bound for good fortune after surviving a great disaster. Dong Fengyu sighed deeply with relief. He had almost been scared to death earlier, so now that he saw Bailey Hongzhuang was safe and sound, his mood quickly turned bright and sunny again. "How did you avoid the demonic beast tide?" Gong Xiaoqing's eyes were filled with doubt and confusion. He knew the terrain here very well. The right path Bailey Hongzhuang took was a dead end over a cliff. There was simply nowhere to hide. Chapter 274 Secret. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and didn't explain. Even though she had an explanation, it'd be hard for Gong Xiaoqing and the rest to believe it. Dong Fengyu rested his hand on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and smiled widely. "How you avoided them isn't important. It's not that you're safe." Seeing this, Gong Xiaoqing didn't continue his questioning. But this new little martial sister just seemed to be filled with mystery. Running into a dead end after a narrow escape from the demonic beast tide, yet still coming out completely unharmed. It was truly unimaginable. Lu Qingyue stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, her clear, soft eyes twinkling with doubt before finally disappearing. "Let's go back." Gong Xiaoqing slowly spoke. "It's impossible to continue out past the entrance, so let's just go back now." After going through so many twists and turns, they were also extremely exhausted. They didn't know when the demonic beast tide would finish, so the earlier they left, the better. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest didn't object. Running practically all day and all night had left them completely drained them. Resting was the best course of action. The four returned to Azure Water School. Because of the demonic beast tide, no demonic beasts tried to attack them. He Mu stared at the empty cliff, his eyes filled with terror. His attractive face was completely ashen. He peered down the cliff, the clouds and mist hindering his sight. Underneath there was a cool drizzle. If Bailey Hongzhuang fell off from here, there was simply no chance of survival. The young master had instructed him to carefully guard Bailey Hongzhuang before he left, so for the past few days, he had always been secretly watching her. In order to not influence Bailey Hongzhuang's training, he made sure to keep a set distance from Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was always stunning and never needed his help, but he never expected that there would suddenly be a demonic beast wave. Even though he was powerful, the demonic beast tide was still extremely difficult to deal with. Although he desperately wanted to save Bailey Hongzhuang, they were simply too far away. Bailey Hongzhuang was the woman his young master liked. He Mu kneeled beside the cliff, his dark eyes filled with despair and self-blame. His young master trusted him and gave Miss Bailey for him to protect. But not only did he fail to protect Miss Bailey, but even let her die in the demonic beast tide. Thinking up to here, he hated that it wasn't him who had fallen off the cliff. Like this, what face would he have when he saw the young master? But he couldn't do anything. Even if he were to commit suicide for forgiveness, he would still have to report to the young master first. He Mu slowly got up. Although his face was extremely unsightly, his steps were still firm as he left Luoxia Mountain. "Oh!" Dibei-chan listened to He Mu's report, the handsome smile on his face abruptly stiffening. His bright, clear eyes turned dark as if all of its light was engulfed by darkness, engulfed in a terrifying storm. "You said Hongzhuang died in the demonic beast tide?" His handsome face had frozen over, the smile on his face cold and iniquitous. His eyes were locked on He Mu, an enormous, terrifying power pressing onto him. The room trembled from the pressure, the atmosphere cold and dreadful. And Dibei-chan's face was even more frightful. "Young master, your servant is incompetent." He Mu kneeled with both knees. He had no excuse. In fact, just standing in front of Dibei-chan unharmed was already extremely shameful. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.